Right, so festive street talk time. Just before we get into the stories, Gemma, how festive are you feeling about this week's Coronation Street? And did you appreciate the efforts that they went to make everything all Christmassy for us this week?
Well, I tell you what, at Christmas time, my favourite thing was when you finally got the six all together in the room and you knew that they were going to kill somebody.
I said we're not speaking about EastEnders.
And you didn't know who it was going to be, but you had an inkling. And then one of them jumps back up alive.
EastEnders was proper good one on Christmas Day. We never watch EastEnders, but I was like, I want to watch it. I want to watch what happens because of all the lead up that there's been, and it was pretty darn fantastic. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but
yeah, I've seen one person say they didn't like it.
I've seen one or two people say they didn't like it, but on the whole, it's been very well received.
So therefore, it's good.
And we watched Boxing Day and everything as well. But we're not talking about that. Go and listen to that Walford podcast.
One. Go listen to a different podcast.
We're going to be telling you about all the fun festive stuff.
Unfortunately, we have to talk about Coronation Street.
They had Christmas music.
Ugh.
It's like...
Yeah, they did, didn't they? Listen, I'm going to say...
And when Monday's episode started, there was about a 2-second gap between the music finishing, the theme music finishing, and the Christmas music starting. It's like, at last, have we broken the curse that every Christmas Day episode has to start with... No, there it is. They even used that piece of music before, honestly.
Tell you how they could have got more viewers. The music could have been... Do 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 do.
To trick them.
I'm not going to be horrible the whole time, but
there may be a somewhat bit of festive snark in tonight's podcast.
I didn't pay 100% attention, and I know it's going to shock everybody because I'm normally really, really detail orientated when it comes to watching Coronation Street. But we were with Michael's family, and I was trying to help them to get up to speed and answering questions that they had.
We did
about
have
what
that
was
to
going
do
on.
as well. Yes, we did. I kind of liked the bit with everybody going into the shop at the beginning of Monday's episode.
That was funny.
It was an idea that kind of worked, and everyone was saying, "Oh no, let me in as well."
Hang on, listen. You got to dial your expectations into what we got. That was hilarious.
That compared to some of what we got, that was comedy gold.
That was tippity top.
That
was like Morecambe and Wise making breakfast.
They had a drone shot down the street. You don't get them every week, do you?
They did have a weird van with a Father Christmas on the top that they
did have around. A weird van with a Father Christmas.
Obviously cost a lot of money.
Makes a change from the Argos van, doesn't it?
Do you think that they got a discount on all this stuff? Because obviously they need it like...
Oh yeah, they need it back in October time, don't they?
So they're like, can we just borrow your Christmas things and...
Yeah, as long as you give it back to us by the time Halloween's over, then that's fine. I tell you what I did not like, and why they
the rest of it.
I didn't like the panning up to the stars at the end of the Christmas Day episode. Why do you... It looks so rubbish.
I'm really give them points for not putting a cheeky little shooting star or...
That's true.
Chris Krimble again, like we had last year.
Yes, last year we did have Magical Christmas Man from behind the postbox, didn't we? Oh, no, but when they panned up to the stars...
Fireworks.
And it was... How many... There was quite a few stars. It was...
You know they're going to do that on New Year's Eve now. They're going to have fireworks.
Place your bets now, Ed. You'd better not do this.
No, Ed, don't listen.
Fake CGI fireworks over the Rovers on Sunday night's episode. Place your bets now. Just don't gamble your house on them. They need to get away from some of these... expectations or things that they think are the rules of Christmas. You don't need that, and it looks so fake.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Weatherfield being picked up and put in the middle of like a dark sky park because you would not see
no light pollution from Weatherfield.
Apparently, at the end of Christmas Day's episode, there was an apocalyptic explosion in Manchester that took out most of the population, which is why it was dark. And just minutes away were the hordes about to knock the gates down at Media City to try and ask them for food.
Yeah. Then the other kind of talking point around it, I suppose, is the fact that it was half an hour on Christmas Day. I've seen mixed opinions on that. I think beforehand, lots of people were saying, some people were saying, and I think we probably said the same as well. It seems like Coronation Street isn't trying this year. They know that there's no point competing with EastEnders. They know that in the last few years, their Christmas Day ratings have gone down. So, you know, they're obviously not even bothering to give it a good shot this year. Other people have said, no, well, that maybe half an hour is all you need on Christmas Day. It felt... And we said on the podcast last week that when the musical number's over, it'll kind of be stopping in to see what some of them are doing on Christmas Day, and then by the time you know it, it's the end of the episode, and that kind of is what it was, isn't it?
I get why they did it, because they wanted to have a two-hander with
Carla and
Peter the following day, and because of the way Corrie's set up now, you can't really do two-handers anymore because it's an hour long. So the argument will always be, oh, it was only half of the episode. You know?
It does make me wonder whether Christmas Day and Boxing Day's episodes were originally written
as
one to be a whole hour on Christmas Day, because these days, well, the normal way of doing things is that the hour episode that we get now is written as 2 half-an-hour episodes, isn't it? So it could well be that they decided to split it. I don't know necessarily what the benefit of that would be. Corrie did get a bit more of a ratings boost on the Boxing Day. But then they hadn't really publicised much about Peter's exit, had they? I mean, we knew it was happening.
I don't think there was a trailer or...
But no, there was no, hey everybody, you need to tune in to Coronation Street on Boxing Day. There's a big two-hander-ish, and it's going to be Chris Gascoigne's last episode. But yeah, they did end up getting an extra 400,000 people watching on the Boxing Day. I suppose it's not much at the end of the day, but... Yeah, Christmas Day was just a bit of a dud for me. There was an awful lot of... It was checking in on how people are getting on. It felt like the plots didn't particularly progress too much. There was some not particularly successful attempts at humour. Possibly my worst bit of the... we will get onto some positives, I promise. One of my worst bits about Christmas Day's episode was Bloody Mary, and didn't we say that Roy and Evelyn having their lovely semi-romantic Christmas together at the cafe would just end up with Mary being a gooseberry? And it was. What did she add to those scenes other than, hey, look, Patty Claire's in it today, going bouncy, 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 bouncy on a Swiss exercise ball? It's like that. There was exactly what's wrong with Mary these days. She used to be really funny, but now she just come in as a bit of like she's escaped from the asylum, you know.
Yep. Okay. So now it's time for the news.
And that was this week's Coronation Street. It was a real shame, but fair play, because lots of people I have seen really did enjoy that Christmas Day episode, and they said, you know, if we're just sitting down after our Christmas dinners and we're watching with our families, we just want to see what our characters are doing, and that will do.
Yes.
But Christmas Day shouldn't be about that. People say, I've seen lots of people saying,
Christmas Day shouldn't be about watching television with your family after having a nice meal.
No, they say that it shouldn't be about the big stunts and explosions and revelations, but why? That's what soap is. Yes, back in the day, back in the 60s and the 70s, if there was an episode of Corrie on Christmas Day, there wasn't necessarily the same big shocks and stunts and twists and everything, but that's no reason to say, well, let's do an episode like that. And I will also add to that, and sorry if this is a little bit sacrilege as well, back in the 60s and 70s, when they just caught up with what some of our favourite families were doing on Christmas Day, I'm going to say the characters were a bit more lovable back then.
Oh dear.
For checking in with what the Baileys are doing, I'm not particularly fussed. There aren't enough characters that were shown in that episode that I was like super enthralled to see what their festive adventures would be. Oh, let's see what Eliza and Stu are up to on Christmas Day. Well, that doesn't really compare to Ena, Minnie and Martha around the table at the Snug, does it now? Do you want to say anything? Do you want to save me from myself here,
No, it's
Gemma?
okay.
It was a shame, but Boxing Day I enjoyed more. That was the two-hander with Carla and Peter. I think I was more up on that one than you were, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Do you wanna say anything now, or save it till that story comes along? Just make me look like a negative Nancy.
Okay, right. So it was really well acted, and the script was great, but the concept I did not buy, and they couldn't convince me that anything that happened in that episode made any real sense. And they tried really hard, but I just can't see why it makes any sense that Peter, Carla would say, oh, Peter, I'm so worried about you. You need to go and, be on a boat with a bunch of guys and nothing to do but think about how much you want to drink.
He said that if he saw a glass, he'd turn away.
Yeah, but that's all they do. Why? No one else is going to be not drinking because they're, that's not fair on everybody else. So they're all going to be drunk all the time. I'm sure they will be.
For me, the fact that he was going on a drink that was,
on a drink.
On a boat, that was tantamount to a year-long booze cruise, that didn't bother me so much. It was just the way that they had to engineer it so that Peter, sorry, I can't leave because my actor has decided to quit.
Well, this is it.
It didn't quite fit for me.
Karna fell foul of when Bhavna wanted to leave and she couldn't conceive of a way in that Rana and Kate would split up. So she said, right, kill me off. And then everyone was mad about it because it fell into the kill your gaze trope, and unfortunately not a really good look. But I can see her point, because in this situation, it's the same thing that sort of happened with Toya and Spider. Our love is so great and immense, but we can't be together because we're contracts are keeping us apart. Like, there's literally no reason. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody does this in real life. This is not logical. This is not how people act. So how do you get around this problem of having
and you can't always...
an established character? And is this why Coronation Street is reluctant to make couples such a big deal? I don't think it is, but they could certainly pretend it was.
Yeah. It was the same with Roy and Hayley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, Roy and Hayley wouldn't split up, so they ended up having to kill off Hayley. I'm kind of glad that they didn't kill off Peter, because is he going to come back? I don't know. Chris Gascoigne has kind of in a little interview that he did afterward made it clear that the door has been left open for me. Never say never and all that. But if that was the last,
in 2 years' time,
it wouldn't surprise me. But then equally, if he doesn't come back, I feel like he did get a bit of a send off with all the Barlows and the Battersbys on Boxing Day morn. But
I just thought it was. It just felt weird.
The performance, Chris Gascoigne is, I've always said, is one of the best actors on the show. And somebody on Twitter, Bobby, I think it was, messaged us the other day and said one of the highest compliments that she can give to Chris is that you forget that you're watching an actor. When you watch Peter Barlow, you are watching Peter Barlow, and it doesn't even enter into your head that this is Chris Gascoigne reading lines. And that's exactly how I feel about him. It might be to do with the fact that he's not on social media. He doesn't make his presence. He doesn't do all the interviews. He's a bit of an enigma. He's a bit of an Eileen Derbyshire kind of person, although he does hang around the set quite a lot apparently. But I totally believe him as Peter Barlow, and I think that both he and Alison King did a wonderful job with the script that Jan McVerry gave them on Tuesday.
Jan McVerry and those two did as good a job as they possibly could have done with the concept that made no sense.
Yeah.
Because and she's like, oh, I'm a businesswoman, I can't leave. You can. No one needs you at the factory shouting at them. I don't buy it. She's had itchy feet before. She doesn't need to be there. She's gone travelling. She's gone to LA and all this stuff. If you really loved him, you'd go with him to make sure he didn't pick up the bottle, because I can't see how being isolated and alone with your thoughts is a great place for somebody who is questioning their life after having battled alcoholism to the extent that they needed a new liver.
Yeah. Please
tell me how that makes sense.
There was also...
And also, what's he going to do about his... I was thinking about this. What's he going to do about his medication and his... He needs to take pills all the time. He needs to have checkups, surely. How is he going to take care of himself when he's going around the world? He's not going to have proper healthcare. I'm not being horrible about other countries. It's not like we have the best healthcare in the world, but it's certainly much easier to access and you don't have to pay for it at the point of accessing it.
Yeah, I don't think he could fit very many liver pills in that rucksack of his that he had slung over his back on the tram.
What, wasn't that a flex? Yeah, this is all I need. Yeah, just got 3 pairs of pants and a toothbrush.
Well, it's a good job that Carla didn't go with Peter, because who else would have put up Bobby when he came in on the very next episode?
I thought you say who else would have put up with Bobby.
well, maybe that's true as well. But let's get to him when we get there. I mean, so Monday's episode, basically for me, I was just left feeling
Christmas Day, yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, that was that then. But we'll find out in a minute. Tuesday, I thought, I feel like I watched a good episode, and I think they did the best they could with the concept that they had, but unfortunately the concept wasn't the best. And then Wednesday and Friday's episodes, they were normal, but we weren't able to do any of the shorts this week. I don't think they'd have been rated very highly.
The thing that bugged me about the Boxing Day episode was that it was clearly posited as this really iconic special episode. I know it wasn't a proper two-hander because we had some scenes at the beginning and the end with other characters, but I think, you know, we talk about two-handers all the time. There've only been, what, 2?
Yeah, there's not been many, but this is interesting because you got your Curly and Raquel two-hander for the Millennium. You got your Tracy and Deirdre two-hander in, when was it, 2007, 2008 or whatever, where Tracy confesses to Deirdre that she actually did kill Charlie on purpose. Those were both proper two-handers, and when Corrie fans talk about the two-handers, those are the episodes that you're talking about. But then you've also got Richard and Gail in 2003 when he confesses to killing Patricia and everything else on that episode, and often that doesn't get bundled along with the other Corrie two-handers because for a brief second David and Sarah Louise are sitting on the stairs or something, and there was an awful lot more other characters in this episode than in that one, so I don't know whether because there was such a long gap. Is it a
canonical two-hander?
Does it even really matter? I don't know.
Well, they obviously deliberately did this to impart extra meaning to it, didn't they?
Yeah, it was one of these, these are two legacy characters. Carla's been in the show for, 15, 20 years nearly. Chris Gascoigne's been in the show. Peter's been in the show on and off since the Millennium. These two have been, they're the Burton and Taylor of Weatherfield. And they've always been in each other's...
Peter's a legacy character.
Pants.
Yeah, pants.
Yeah. So let's give them this big send-off because they, as a couple, deserve it.
Yeah, and on paper you say, Boxing Day, two-hander... Carla and Peter leaves. You think, wow, great. This is going to be amazing. And then you watch it and it's just two people trying to convince you that what they're doing makes sense.
Yeah, their crackpot plan has actually got merit.
They needed to make them split up because this just felt like, at the end of the day, half the people that watched it still don't know. Or, half the people think they're together and half the people think they broke up. Nobody knows if they broke up or not. I don't know what the hell's going on. Why on earth couldn't they have just said, yeah, we'll send you a postcard at every port, babe? He was like, oh no, we've got to make a clean break. But I thought you weren't splitting up. Are you splitting up or not?
I think that I think that Carla has admitted to herself. She was on Wednesday's episode, was it? When Izzy and Sean were kind of needling her about it. She was kind of, and even Roy. There was that great line on Wednesday's episode where she was telling Roy in the cafe what had happened, and Roy's like, "So what are you not going?" And she says, "Roy, do you need me to spell it out to you?" And he's like,
I do.
He says, "I think you probably do." Yes, that was just brilliant. But Roy not getting things.
They didn't. Well, I don't get it either. and they showed Peter looking at with maudlin eyes at a laptop showing a picture of a yacht a few times. Well, I've done that myself. Doesn't mean I want to go on a round the world cruise without you.
Oh, thanks, darling. Well, certainly not the drop of a hat.
Just felt like a massive miss. They should have had them break up properly. I know that people would hate it, but it would have made better television. This is what you've got to think to yourself. Do you want to save the feelings of a select group of hardcore fans that you know are going to kick off? Because you know that they would.
Carter fans?
Yeah,
what?
That's fair enough because they're a couple that shouldn't break up. Or are you trying to make good telly? Because sometimes you make good telly and you sacrifice the character stuff, and sometimes it's vice versa. I felt like they didn't make good telly and they didn't make good character choices in this story.
Well,
they failed on both counts.
It was also a story that didn't have much build-up to it.
No, that's what I mean.
Peter had that lovely scene at the AA meeting.
Yeah.
When was that? Wednesday last week, I'm going to say, maybe Friday, where he was talking about how empty he feels inside and his life has got no meaning. That was kind of where his exit story started. Yes, there'd been the odd scene of him looking at a Hayes travel advert, and we'd heard about his mate Mickey on the boat a couple of months ago, and okay, since he run over Stephen and accidentally bumped him off a couple of months ago, he's been a bit down for a couple of scenes, but it felt very, very rushed. And even in the couple of weeks before the AA scene, we didn't see anything of Peter. That's how you say goodbye to a legacy character. You don't say, oh God, you're going in a week, probably better put a storyline together, which obviously wasn't what it was, but it did feel a little bit like that. He kind of got Emily Bishop, didn't he?
Yeah, and yeah, I'm sorry. The more I think about it, the more it makes me a bit cross, because it felt like a massive fumble. And everyone tried their best, that's what it means, but it felt like they were trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. It didn't make any sense. No matter how much you dressed it up, it just wasn't logical at all. And and you can't, like, having him, it just boggles my mind. They had him kill off Stephen, and then he meet his liver donor, and then he went to the AA and he was talking about all this and looking at pictures of yachts. But it all felt like just so disjointed, and it didn't feel like any of it came together coherently, even though it kind of makes sense in a way. But at the end of it, it never really felt like I was picking up.
It's the sort of story
pieces.
where somebody at Coronation Street could sit you down and say, no, this did make sense, and
because
they would be able to explain it very
exactly.
logically.
Since Stephen was killed, yes, he's been going on this spiral, but how does killing somebody turn into I want to go on a yacht?
Tell you what they should have done. Tell you what he should have done, Gemma. He should have been bloody gambling that or bartering that paperclip all year, and instead or just a plane ticket. He could have been there. He's like, finally, I can swap this for a motorbike. This is what I've been working up towards all the year. Yeah, that's what he wanted at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he got there in when was it? Late January, early February. But if this had been a thread for Peter all the year, where he could have got his motorbike, or he could have got this plane ticket. They knew he was leaving
all the way back then.
Yeah, of course they did. They must have done.
And they had the perfect... Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Corrie. No.
Well...
Sorry. I'm not here to just sing your praises every week.
Yeah.
And we are more positive, I think, than lots of people about it in general.
I think so. Believe it or not.
Because I try to always look at the positives, and I know the people work really hard on it.
I'm sure when we get to that story, we'll be able to find more positives.
It's really sad when you work hard on something and somebody craps all over it. But... I mean, some people really thought it was good.
I haven't seen a whole lot of praise for the Boxing Day episode, to be honest.
Which is really bad, because that should have been the redeeming...
After Mondays, after Christmas Days, was a bit of a letdown for me. I thought, well, at least tomorrow's is going to be great.
Well, this is the point.
And it was in a way. The way that Mondays left it, I thought it can't possibly... be completely satisfactorily tied together in 22, 23 minutes.
Why did they do it like that? It's like they cut it. I know this is not why. Probably what happened was they got told you got a half an hour here and a half an hour there. And they thought, we'll capitalise on this by making it a two-hander or something like that. But they ruined it by not even making it a two-hander. But they couldn't have made it a two-hander anyway, because you can't have Peter just leaving without speaking to anybody but Carla. It didn't make any sense.
It wouldn't have made any sense.
And I hated the transitions between the scenes as time passed it. I hated it. I wanted to rip my eyes out and throw them at the television.
I think that if they had made it a two-hander, that probably would have made it worse, because I would have bemoaned the fact that he didn't get to say goodbye to his dad, and as it is, Simon got completely shunned, didn't he? But I think there are plot reasons for that. But I think that even if they'd have given them an extra 5 minutes maybe, would that have given them, I don't think it would have made much difference.
Just put it in the next episode.
Yeah, but I don't think that would have made the two-hander any better if there had been an extra 5 minutes of just Carla and Peter.
Good thing about it was that this doesn't go down as an official two-hander. So they don't ruin their
track. Well, I tell you what, that Curly and Raquel one, that's one of the best episodes ever. That is literally one of my favourite episodes of Coronation Street ever. And that was her coming back, and there were so many callbacks of the past. That was an hour-long episode, wasn't it? They managed to make Curly and Raquel last a whole hour, actually.
There you go, Gemma, shut up.
Yeah, so maybe they could have done with Carla and Peter, but I still don't think an hour would have been enough to have made it make any sense. So half an hour probably was long enough. Oh gosh, that bit in the episode with Curly and Raquel when she's speaking French on the phone and Curly's like, oh, you can speak French. Oh, I love it so much. Anyway.
Well, I would have liked to have seen Carla or Peter speak French.
We need to get started. We're talking about this week's stories and doing a little bit of synopsising. I think we do. We haven't done too much already. We've just dumped on it.
Did you want to talk about the ratings?
Let's do it in the news section because there's other newsy bits and just general things to talk about there. But right, instead of the normal cheesy Coronation Street puns for storyline titles this time, Gemma, I have got some Christmas puns. And they're not really related to the stories, but I've tried to make Christmas puns related to the characters that star in the stories. And I will tell you now, they're all terrible. But I thought I'd do it. I think I've done this before. I don't know. So, first storyline, the Carla and Peter storyline, and Bobby, Carla the Bells.
Like da 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 da.
Yeah, like Carla the Bells, exactly. Carla the Bells.
Carla the Bells.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, we have got I Believe in Father Christmas. Gemma's just putting her head in her hands for this one.
I'm taking my glasses off so I can rub my eyes.
Next one, Paula Cracker.
That's all right.
It's not appalling.
Imagine if your name was Paula Cracker. If your name's Paula Cracker, write in. We'll give you a free subscription. Your subscription to Patreon.
You can listen to us moan about Coronation Street for free for a whole year. Christmas Eve, Lynn, is coming up next.
Yes.
Yeah, that works. That writes itself, doesn't it? Feliz Navidad.
You hate that song.
I hate that song.
And you hate that character?
I really want to like Eliza. She's got... I'm struggling to sing her. Next one, Gemma. Tommy O, Little Town of Bethlehem. Tommy O, Little Town of Bethlehem. Yeah, and then also the Rovers story comes back in, but it was a sneak entry in tonight's episode, so I didn't have time to come up with the Christmas pun. But
no rooms at the inn.
No room at the inn. There we go. Okay. So...
Hooray!
Hooray for Christmas, everyone.
Christmas time.
Oh, it must be so fun to be on an EastEnders podcast this week.
Listen, it's all up and down. I'm not buying into anybody's doom and gloom predictions about the end of soaps as you know it. There's one bad episode.
There's been so much talk online this week. So much about this is the end of soaps. The ratings are going down. This can't last for much longer. Corrie needs a new producer.
Everyone should be fired.
Sack all the writers.
Sack all the writers. What are you talking about?
I'm not going to say that it's not time for a new producer at Coronation Street. Clearly it is. Ian McLeod has been doing it for a very long time, but longer than almost any other producer.
I don't think that's true.
No, I think it is. Honestly, I think that he's maybe even the second longest running producer on Coronation Street now. It feels like there needs to be some fresh blood, and yes, somebody who's going to be wielding that axe a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
But hey, there's been some spoilers about other even characters that's appeared over the day. Are we gonna do a cabin extra about that later?
Depends on how long
we'll see what time it is. Do you want to do Carla of the Bells, or would you like me to?
Carla of the Bells.
Carla of the Bells.
Okay, right. On Monday, Peter gives Carla a bracelet. It says P loves C.
That was sweet.
Sounds rude. What does that mean? I think that's really rude. She loves it. Of course she does. She says you'll get yours later.
Your P can love my see you later.
But only for one day. One more day. Carla and Peter left alone number one later, and Ken and Bertie are asleep in the chair, and Carla tells him to come outside. She gives him his present. It is a one-way plane ticket so he can go and join his mate's crew. I don't think she should have used the word mate there because it's got a specific nautical connotation, which I don't think she meant to use. Your friend.
Yes.
It's a present for you. I'm not coming. Lovey.
No, he's not. She would. I think that Alison Sinclair. No, sorry, Alison King. Alison Sinclair did not make a cameo in this. Alison King delivered that line really well. She sold that.
I didn't say that I was.
Oh, I'm not coming, Lovey.
I didn't say I was representing her.
I know.
This is why they get paid so much money.
It was a real kind of sort of moment, and that's when they panned up to the sky, and it was a bit naff.
See,
but
the other problem with this is that this makes so much more sense if it literally is just a year.
What do you mean?
Like, go off for a year, get it out of your system, come back, we'll carry on loving each other for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
That's the only way this makes any sense whatsoever, but instead it turns into, like, what? So what does she expect him to do? I don't even know how long this trip is. What, he's going to come back in, like, 6 months, 8 months?
I think it was supposed to be
a year. Comes back in a year, and she's like, no, start off, you can't. No.
I've moved on.
I've got a new boyfriend. He's cast. He's a heartbreaker. He's a ladies' man. He's got a dark secret. We haven't worked it out yet. You can't.
Sorry, Peter. There's no room for you anymore.
No room. No.
Go and sleep with Simon.
Bobby's contract's not up yet. He's still going to be here to the end of the year.
That was a really touching moment, and I liked how that they kind of carried on straight from there on Wednesdays, because we were all waiting to see what this two-hander would be like. And the first character on the Tuesday episode was Tracy, wasn't it? With the wine, listening in to Peter
like
and
we
Carla
all were at home, scurrying out of the way when they come inside. Peter's fuming. He says, Carla wants me gone tomorrow. It's a one-way ticket. And
I'm kind of glad that he had that reaction, because it did feel like it was a bit of a Dear John letter that she was giving him, wasn't it?
It was a stupid idea.
Here's a ticket, you're dumped. So I'm glad that he didn't go to, oh no, I can't, oh do you think I should? He was fuming.
Because it's stupid.
He'd been kind of dreaming about going away on a boat, and he'd say his life here is just sleepwalking through. But he still clearly deeply loved her, and to have him say, well, basically sod off then, which is what this ticket was, too right he's fuming about it.
I can see these stories I've seen before where two people love each other but they just cannot be together.
You love them, you let them go.
Yeah, there are loads of really good stories like that, but this was not one of them. It just wasn't. So
isn't Casablanca a bit like that?
Yeah, but it was during the war.
Don't need to do that these days. They couldn't even text each other about them, and now you can, and you cut off that channel of communication, honestly.
Yes, and it was a love triangle, wasn't it? I really can't remember. I only watched it a couple of times, but it's very good. But if they were going for Casablanca... Oh.
I haven't seen Casablanca. I have just seen the parody of it on Red Dwarf, but
I thought I'd made you watch it.
No, I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, it's great. I recommend it. It's one of those little known gems of cinematic history.
You've not heard of it, go and check it out.
Yeah. Right, so they go back to the flat and he's still fuming. He's saying, you're using everything I said at the AA meeting against me. And she says, I can see you're unhappy. I can't unhear what you said. And I don't even remember what he said now. I hate it here. I want to leave. He says that Weatherfield and his family are his support group. And she says, well, you said you felt you were sleepwalking through life then.
He was venting. I think everybody feels a bit fed up with their lives
stuff
sometimes
all the time.
and narked with their jobs.
Half the things I say, you wouldn't be buying me a one-way ticket. You'd be stabbing me through the heart.
The problem is, it's Chris Gascoigne's fantastic acting, and when he was pouring his heart out in the community centre, Carla's like, what?
Carla's like, wow, this is amazing.
Really
this is my second best favourite AA scene that you've been in. Not as funny as the other one.
It doesn't hold a candle to the other one, does it?
He uses the phrase X when he starts talking about Carla. She doesn't like it. He goes out to have a vape.
Well, yeah, he's basically saying, because she brings up Leanne, and he says, well, I wouldn't talk to her, or you, any of my exes. So she's like, oh, I'm your ex now, am I?
Yes, you are. You've just done this to yourself. She's like shot herself in her foot, and she doesn't understand why she can't finish the marathon.
I think if I was Carla's mate, I'd probably be able to say, yeah, you did. Your heart was in the right place, wasn't it, love? And I kind of can see how it was.
I'd say
in a soapy sort of way. If this was real life. And I know we can't always use those parameters.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, would you?
I'd be saying to her, Carla, he's not got a guy working on his crew tomorrow, right? So there's a space for him. So do they really need this extra guy that Peter's gonna, like, this job that he's gonna do, or is it basically a nothing job that they've just made up?
Peter is the wise man of Weatherfield, isn't he? He's probably going to stand on the deck and go, let me tell you a story.
Is this crew so terrible that nobody wants to work with them and they literally can't hire anybody to do it? Why don't you just give him the money in an envelope and let him decide? Well, she says, look, the flight leaves tomorrow.
She's probably kicking herself already, to be honest.
She's like, this was a dumb idea.
The cold light of day, she wakes up on the 27th of December.
I was drunk again. So she says, you've got to talk about this because your flight's going tomorrow. And he says, no, I want to go out. So she lets him. And she says, well, think about what you're coming home to when you get back. And then
she means go and have a flashback sequence.
I hated this too.
I didn't enjoy that. And I usually don't mind them. Usually I'll put up with a character looks at somewhere longingly and clips from the past play behind them. But the problem with this was none of them were recognisable clips for me. No, I can't name any of them.
At least one of them, I wasn't sure who was speaking.
I think that was Carla. I think she was sounding a bit different in there. Again, maybe the Carla and Peter fans were like, yes, they are the best Carla and Peter moments, but there was literally nothing iconic. But I don't know if there are any iconic Peter and Carla clips. I will say that they're a proper classic Corrie couple. But yeah, that didn't really work for me. He stands outside the Rovers and has a look, doesn't he? And it was a lot of it about sort of moaning about him.
Yeah.
It was a lot about him drinking and like, oh, drink. You always turn to.
Who was speaking to him in the Rovers? When he was on a flashback.
No, it was just Carla. It was all Carla clips.
Oh,
I think so. God. I think it was.
I know I should know this.
No, well, it's alright. We've only seen it once.
Anyway, he just goes, I'm going out for a vape. He goes out his door. He turns right. He walks. He turns right. He stands in the middle of the road trying to get run over. Looks to his left, looks to his right. His voice is in his head and comes back in.
Yeah.
Is that what they do when they go out to vape? I always wondered. So, anyway, he comes back in.
What's inside that vape? Maybe it's one of
hallucinogenic.
Stephen's LSD specials.
Yeah, probably. He heads back in. She's watching Love Actually, wondering why her dad's in it. Just in a fetal position.
Hang on a minute, that Deputy Prime Minister, I recognise him from somewhere.
Well, she must have only just started it as well, so she's like, well, I thought you'd be longer, actually. I thought you were doing a proper thing.
I like how he comes in and she's there on the sofa and he's like, let me guess, Love Actually. Literally, the TV is right in front of you, Peter. Surely you know.
She's only just got past the airport scene at the beginning, Peter. He says...
She comes and she pats the sofa and he comes and joins her for a snuggle.
I'm not my dad. I've travelled the world and I've already seen everything. I'm not scared of leaving. I want to stay because of what we've got. I'm sorry I'm not sounding convinced here. I'm not meaning to make fun of this. They snuggle up together and he talks about how much he's loved seeing her grow and get more comfortable with her own skin. I also just want to point out here that if he actually loves her, he shouldn't leave her either because she's just gone through another mental health crisis and questioning herself and a trouble at her job. Why is he leaving her too? She's just as vulnerable as he is in many ways.
Well, he knows that Stephen is now dead, so Carla's...
Well, she's got her money back now. What else does she want? She's buying plane tickets.
She hasn't got the money back.
Well, no, she got the contract.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, a lot is riding on this contract. People stealing stuff, going on round the world trips, telling everybody their job's safe for the rest of their lives. I hope this contract doesn't fall through, but I don't have a lot of faith in them. Anyway, how can I sail away from this? And Carla tells him that the thought of losing him is breaking her heart. And then they shag, and we have to go away for a minute because we can't watch
that. Bit of Vaseline on the screen while that happens.
I didn't like that either. What are they doing that for?
And then Chesney and Todd walk in and go, whoa, not again.
He's got Santa out and his todger. Okay, so they shag and then they put their clothes back on. And then Peter says, why don't you come with me? And she says, I can't. I'm rooted here. We'd end up resenting each other. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. Carla says, I can see there's nothing here that's keeping you afloat. And he says, yeah, but you do. And she keeps saying, no, sail away. Fresh for you every day. Waking up with nothing to fear but the forecast and maybe your liver getting rejected because you've run out of pills. He tries to tell her that he's got Ken and Simon to think of. And she says, they would tell you to go for it, especially Ken. And he says, why don't we delay the flight so I can say goodbye? And she says, no, it would just give you a chance to lose your nerve. And she gives him the ticket and she presses it against his chest and they both cry. And then he nods and he gets up because he's going to do it. And then we have another...
It doesn't take much convincing, does it? Over the course of a scene.
This is silly. This is why it's silly. Next scene, he's packing his things on the kitchen table and she comes in with a takeaway saying, so this is it, he says, this is it, the Last Supper. And she says, don't poke the bruise. Sorry, you hit yourself and now you're blaming me for the bruise.
Stop hitting yourself, Carla.
Stop poking your own bruise.
Stop hitting yourself.
You dumb woman. They sit down, the conversation turns to how they're going to communicate. They decide, no, don't worry about it. We can't be bothered with that. It's too confusing.
That's going to be poking the bruise too, they say.
Kick away the crutch and make a clean break of it. Oh. Doesn't make sense. Next morning, the Barlows and the Batsbys have gathered outside the flat. Tell you what, if you wanted... What day is this?
This is Boxing Day.
Do not get me up on Boxing Day morning to say goodbye to you for your crackpot idea that going on a round-the-world cruise is going to stop you drinking. Nobody in the world has ever gone on a cruise to stop drinking. Right. They're like, hooray, Peter, hooray, you're going. And they say goodbye everybody individually. Bertie's like, I'm sorry, I've forgotten who you are. Toya says, may the road rise up to meet you. She doesn't understand boats. She tried.
May you run aground.
She tried her best. It's not like there aren't any wise nautical terms she could have quickly Googled, but I guess she didn't get very much notice. Leanne's very wistful and she just kind of says, look after yourself. So the collection of shaggers goes and leaves the family there. Amy looks like she's fighting back tears, just confused. Everyone's going, I don't get what's happening. Tracy says, I hate you, do you know that? And he says, I hate you more, and they have a hug. They're all crying. They're all doing a great job. They're all performing really well.
Nicely done.
Everybody. Leanne, Toya, everybody.
Yeah, they every single one in that scene, they were brilliant. Like I think that Jane Danson, the look that she gave in that really scene, it was just a split second of something, just kind of a knowing, I see you sort of connection that the pair of them have once had was really lovely. Amy, yeah, she was. You're right. She was almost crying there. Tracy's line of saying, "Oh yeah, I hate you," do you know? And she her face was creasing up. Her brother, who I know that he's not always been here. The way that the publicity of Chris Gascoigne's leaving is like he's been on the show for 23 years. He's not. It's been at least two short stints away from Coronation Street before.
Yeah.
And obviously Tracy has had her time away as well inside. But these two have got a real special bond, and I think, it doesn't... I know Tracy has softened over the years, but she's still got a heart of stone. It's just not the rock-hard stone. It's maybe pumice at the moment. and that was melting a little bit there, so I really appreciated that. And she's also, of course, going through some really tough times in her own marriage. We're led to believe at the moment with Steve, so she kind of needs somebody as a support, and now he's sailing off.
Well, this is where I got confused, because later on, in the story, Tracy and Steve start talking about gap year.
Yeah, that's before.
And I got confused and thought that that's what Peter was doing.
Well, he is in a way.
Yeah, exactly. That's what his story should have been. And then they could have come up with some cock and ball story about why he's not coming back. And Ken's just Ken. I love you, Peter, and I'm proud of you. So go open your heart and go do what I never did. He's done it already, Ken. He's been there and come back. He's going off again. His heart should not be open. He's already got a girlfriend. Just doesn't make sense. Carla walks up the street in a horrible coat towards the tram station.
She wears white.
I didn't like it. I thought it was horrible.
It's pure.
It was all satiny and...
She's letting him go.
It looked like
a little angel.
Flap, flap, flap. They tell each other they love them, but this is the right thing to do. After a final kiss, she swishes herself back around and down Victoria Street, and then he puts his headphones in and goes in. I think she turns around and he's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, what have I done?
I can't remember.
She's forgotten about it by the next episode. Literally, she's like mentions it once and she's totally over it.
Yeah,
it's maddening.
It did. A lot of people have said that Bobby turning up on her doorstep the very next episode was a little bit too soon, and we didn't get enough chance to see it sinking in. And
yes, it's plausible deniability for why they're not having Carla moping around everywhere. But really, they should have given this some time.
I kind of get the justification of, and you know what great TV this is going to be, because no sooner has Peter left Carla's life than another problem lands on her doorstep. But
whoops. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. Cut to him actually sitting in the tram. There's a tram station. Get to see it.
Weatherfield North, apparently. Cornbrook.
And he drives off going, great, I've got all rid of her, and she thought it was her idea. Sucker.
What did you think of using that tram stop?
I liked it, yeah. Is that going to be the canonical... Because I think we have had the tram... We've had the tram stop in the show before.
I don't think we have.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
I know they've had a tram stop.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We've seen the fake... We've seen whatever tram...
Weatherfield.
Yeah, we've seen...
I don't know whether we have. I know there was an episode
where... There was a scene where people were running around
Emma and Amy were at a tram stop. I'm not sure whether that was supposed to be...
I think Nick was there.
What do you reckon? I can't remember. I forget.
I'm almost 100% sure we've seen a scene from the tram stop that's supposed to be that one.
Unfortunately, this was one that was leaked back in, was it late October? I think they filmed this. I haven't seen this. And it was like Chris Gascoigne films a leaving scene, so I knew that it was coming up to this. So I was, I love a location shoot, and I was looking forward to this, but
I hated it.
I only didn't love this one as much as I thought I might do, is because when I was watching it, I was thinking, that's Cornbrook Station. We've literally driven into that ourselves already. No, it is. It was. We have definitely driven. Well, not that we've been in a passenger in there before, and so to try and think that's Weatherfield, I thought I couldn't. But it was a nice. It was better than the back of a taxi, wasn't it? You got to give him that. And he had his music on. I don't know what the music was. I know I've seen. Have you seen people tweeting about it?
No.
I think it's some artist.
It's always something I've never heard of.
That we've never heard of.
Like what's that woman? Kylie Minogue. She does a few.
It's like the Casablanca of current music.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know.
But no, it was. It was all right. It was all right.
Darling, Dankeschön.
But anyway, forget about all that sentiment because there's no time for it.
Don't think about it.
Wednesday.
This is what they've done. They're like,
his replacement rock up.
Don't think about it because it doesn't make sense. On Wednesday, Simon comes in going, I lost my phone, now I've got it, and nobody finds all these messages like, where's my dad gone? And he's like, oh, that's annoying. This is also stupid. Why would he just leave his son on a whim? Why would you ever do this?
Well, Carla
to your child?
I'm just being kind of devil's advocate, I suppose. And Carla had said, look, I don't want you to say goodbye to these other people because they'll just give you a chance to convince yourself not to go. They'll make you realise this is stupid. And they didn't, but I think possibly Simon would. Can you imagine Simon standing there outside the flat going, good luck, Dad. You've been a pretty rubbish... Peter has been a fairly terrible dad to Simon.
Simon doesn't need
for many years. But I think Simon would have had a bit of a cry and he would have tugged at those heartstrings. So that's why I think we didn't get the goodbye to him. And also it's going to be building up some kind of resentment in Simon's brain.
It's just dumb. The logic here as well, like, you've got to get it. You have to be there. You have to go on the first... you have to be there at the first point of the trip. Sorry, did you say this was a round the world trip? So are we going around the world and not stopping anywhere? Or are there going to be lots of stops? Because if there are lots of stops, I'll just get the next one.
I think that the most unrealistic part of all of this is that Simon, how old is he? 19, 20-year-old guy, could go 2 days without his phone.
I know.
He said he lost his phone.
At least
it wasn't, I've lost my charger because... fairly universal now. That's what the EU have said. But it didn't quite work. But anyway, now he knows and he's not happy. He's kind of mad, isn't he?
Well, I would be mad about it too. And he's even madder when he finds out Carla's bought him the ticket.
Yeah.
And Carla's like, it made sense if you watched the episode.
Don't watch the episode.
Don't watch the episode, no.
But believe me, it makes total sense.
Don't think about it too much. Carla's in the cafe with Ken later. He says, Peter's doing fine. He's off to Cape Horn. I bet he is. Roy has to have it spelled out to him that Peter's gone without her, and she flounces off to the factory, and then she gets mad with Sean and Izzy, about this trip because they're asking him.
I suppose it makes sense for Carla's character that rather than sit and wallow about it, she'll just do work to take her mind off it, because I think she doesn't like feeling things, and she doesn't like seen as being weak and having emotions and being the woman.
That's not the bit that doesn't make sense.
No.
She goes home to work from home.
Because Sean and Izzy are just going,
and then she bumps into this guy in a walking frame on the way. She's like, "Get out of the way!
I hope I never have to have a scene with you again,
bastard!" And then he ends up being her long lost nephew.
Of course he does.
She thinks he's the Deliveroo man, but he's not.
Right. We've managed to get quite a long way into this episode. We've been sort of giving our opinions out of order for everything else. And I think before we go any further, we need to let our good listeners know about our first impressions of Bobby. So, you first, Gemma.
No, hang on, no. Listen. I am rooting for this guy so hard.
So am I.
I've never wanted somebody to do better on this show.
Jack Carroll.
Yes,
and that's
Jack
a nice
Carroll.
Christmassy name, isn't it?
Yeah. He started off as a comedian on Britain's Got Talent.
He was like a young, he was 12, 13, 14 or so on Britain's Got Talent. He was like a little precocious teenager.
I don't know who he is from anything.
I think I've seen clips of him. I don't know when we stopped watching Britain's Got Talent, but we watched it for the first few years at least, fairly religiously, and then it just kind of got a bit repetitive, didn't it? But we weren't watching it when he was on, but I'd seen him. We've also seen him in the film... is it called Walking with Lions? It was the one that Hayley Tamadan, sorry, I know I pronounced that wrong, was in, that we watched a few years ago. And I think there's been various other shows that he's been in. I was, like you said, really, really rooting for him. But I'm struggling. I'm really, really struggling. And But I don't know if it's his fault at the moment. He's getting an awful lot of hate online, but there are also people that are thinking he's absolutely brilliant. We've had people on our Facebook group. I've seen lots of people on Twitter. I've seen people on the Corrie subreddit saying that he's amazing. But it feels like the scales are tipping towards this guy's really, really irritating.
You can't really judge anybody on their first month, I'm going to say. If they're being brought in as a regular... he has cerebral palsy, and I think that is generating a lot of discussion, because I always feel like you get thrown to the wolves if you're representing a group of people. The same way that all the Baileys have to deal with racism, he's having to deal with discrimination against disabled people saying he's only there because he's filling a quota, etc., etc. That's maddening.
It's really bad that in this day and age, and you're right, it was just the same as the Baileys. People saying, they're a black family, are they? Well, and then, let's see if they fit in here. And
you have to fight against that.
Yeah.
That's not fair on anybody.
I think his biggest stumbling block, though, is that he's being sold to us as, hey, everybody, he's a funny character.
And it's just every line is funny at the moment.
That they're trying to make it that, and that's the difficulty that I have with him, because honestly he did have some funny lines. I quite liked his one where he says, I'm not from Deliveroo, I'm from Deliverelli, except we deliver long lost relatives. I was like, that's okay. And if that had been it, or maybe that would have let him take a breath before he rolled off his next barrage of one-liners, maybe it would have been less annoying. But it felt like, felt like the script was every single sentence this guy has to say has to be funny.
Yeah, this is the problem. He's not actually a person yet. He's just a walking
punchline machine, isn't he? He's a walking gag machine.
He hasn't said anything really about who he is as a person, apart from I'm the funny one, I'm quirky because I've got a trumpet.
Yeah.
That just seems really annoying.
But I kind of watching today's episode, and Carla's reaction to him, particularly when he takes the trumpet, is... because she's finding him annoying. Are we supposed to find him annoying? And is his character gonna, is something tragic gonna happen to him where our hearts break for him and we go, oh, Bobby, we forgive you for being annoyed at you for your first couple of hours. I don't know.
It would only make... Yeah, I would hope that at some point he's going to crack and say, this is a front. I'm just trying to... But it's not apparent yet.
It's really, really not. And there's been no hint that it's just a front. I
hope he's not on looking at everybody's comments.
Yeah, well, he probably has. But some people are really loving him, but you can't write a character who just spouts gag after gag after gag.
Yeah, and it's not...
They're not... And they're not all funny.
That it's not Corrie humour either. Corrie humour is in quips, put-downs and banter. Not just somebody going, here's a bunch of jokes.
It was like they were writing Jack Carroll's stand-up routine for him. They might have done better if they'd say, Jack, do you want to write your own verse?
And he's also not writing it, is he? That's the thing. I don't imagine that he's writing his own lines. Oh, no, but he's supposed to be a comedian. So he's obviously funny. He can write his own lines and probably deliver them better if they're from his sense of humour, not just a character that he's playing.
He felt very fake. And nobody speaks like that. Nobody talks where every line is like, ha, ha, ha. I know he was, you could say, well, he's trying to ingratiate himself to Carla. He's a little bit nervous. He's landed herself on her and he's trying to say, hey, I'm a nice guy. Take me in. I've got nowhere else to go. I've been kicked out by me mum. The other thing about him being annoying is one of the reasons he says that his mum kicked him out, not because of the big C, of cancer, which I think that line didn't go down very well with some people, that he's just talking about, what was it, Big Colin, but it seems like he's been kicked out by his mum and Colin because he's really annoying. So I think he's supposed to be annoying, but they need to hurry up and show us why he's not.
Yep.
and believe me, I really want him to do well. I don't know whether now is the time already to bring in another character. Literally, the door's still swinging from when Peter left it, and in he comes. There's already, we've talked many times before about there being too big a cast on Coronation Street.
Yes.
Yet another long lost relative. It's been barely 6 months since Cassie showed up on the street saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm your mum from the past."
We don't need another long lost relative. We don't need another character.
It remains to be seen how this will benefit the Carla dynamic of the show.
There's a lot of expectation on his shoulders here. I just hope he's okay with everything. But, at the same time, it's not really an audience's job to make somebody, to kind of, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be feeling guilty about having an opinion about something.
No,
you have to win me over. I'm not. You don't get my goodwill automatically all the time for everything, no matter what.
And people trying too hard, and that's what this came across as to me, trying too hard to make us like him because, oh, ho, ho, isn't he funny? That's the worst way of doing it.
And he's also really arrogant and annoying and presumptuous. And I don't like that at all.
Yeah, saying, well, of course I can come and live with you. And I kind of like how he's playing on his disability a little bit. There's bits of him that I like when Carla was trying to make him do the washing up and he was like, oh, I'm more of a see what I can do sitting down kind of guy. And then she walks off and he's like, sucker, kind of. I kind of find that a bit funny.
I do as well, but I'm going to say that there's a lot of that in comedy with disabled people. A lot of the time they make themselves the butt of the jokes and it's funny, but it's also not. It must be dispiriting to be the punchline when you're watching it as somebody who's disabled. It's okay to make fun of yourself, but you're not just yourself, are you? He's on television representing everybody. And I just think that there are lots and lots of jokes around that kind of thing. And maybe he could just be, I
get it. But I think lots of Jack Carroll's stand-up routines do poke fun at himself. So I think that's within character for the actor at least. Well,
it's I'm not one to tell. It's not down to me to say. But
you said at the beginning of this that it's difficult you can't always judge people on their first month or whatever on the show. So. There are some characters who straight away you can tell they've got something. And to be fair, there aren't many Corrie characters over the years, or especially over the time that we've done the podcast, that we can say that to. Sam soon as the very second that Sam Blakeman joined that Coronation Street cast in his scene where he came in, me and you were like, this kid is absolutely bloody brilliant. Yep. Keep him forever. Abby Webster, Franklin as she was back then, straight away I knew we have got something special here. But even characters like Evelyn, who we absolutely adore now, she wasn't the best in that first scene where Tyrone and Fizz went to visit her. She was a bit nasty. So you're absolutely right. You can't.
Long time to get.
So, sometimes you can strike gold right from the very beginning, but it's not.
It's not hitting me.
No, and sometimes you can have a character that joins and you kind of not fairly nonplussed towards them until they get something juicy to sink their teeth into. But I suppose this is also a bit comparable to Glenda maybe when she came in. Was it last year? And she took over the funeral that George couldn't do, and she was very big and brash and in your face right from the beginning. And I think we kind of like that.
Yeah.
But that must have really rubbed some people up the wrong way as well. And she has been toned down a little bit now. But this is the thing. I think when you introduce a character, you kind of want to show, and this is who they are. And you almost go too far with it because you've got to let your audience know what you're letting yourself in for this character. But it is very, very early days, and I am more than willing to give him a chance and a chance and a chance. Well, yeah. I really, really, really want him to do well, but lay off the constant one-liners, please, script writers, because it's not gonna work for me.
It doesn't work for any character. It's never worked like that on Corrie. You get back and forth. He's got to be put in his place at some point, and that will make us like him. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about other comedy characters over the year, I mean, I'm immediately drawn to the likes of Archie Shuttleworth, for example. And he wasn't, and Roy Hudd was a stand-up comedian, wasn't he? Did Archie Shuttleworth get gag after gag after gag? No, he was just a nice, jovial man who had his 5'8", I'm not wrong, as the one thing that he would say that was the gag. It wasn't every single line. And
well, I mean, Roy had a lot more experience under his belt.
This is true.
This guy is very young.
Yes, and he's not done lots and lots of acting as well. Some people are saying online he's not an actor, he's a stand-up comic, and I will defend him and say no, he has done acting as well. And I've seen some interviews with him recently where he said, well, to me, writing comedy, performing stand-up comedy, acting, it's all kind of all the same to me. It all feels like I'm flexing that same muscle with each of them. Great. To me, wow. He is an actor. But obviously compared
to
Roy
Hudd, he doesn't. There's so much more pressure on him than almost anybody else I've seen come into the show.
There really, really is.
And it almost strikes me as unfair how much pressure's on him here, because he's got so much against him, so much conversation going on. There's also the arguments about, if you don't like him, it's because you hate disabled people, and then that sparks a whole load of extra drama and conversation. So
it's like, if people are down on Alex in the cafe, you're allowed to say things that you don't really like Alex without being told, you don't like disabled. You're just saying that because he's got Down syndrome.
So far, it's just been a bit of a shaky start, which is not. I mean, remember what New Todd was like? I cried. I cried on this podcast about how much I missed old Todd.
Yeah.
And now I love him.
Gareth Peirce did not have the strongest of starts.
No.
And he similarly had huge weight of expectation on him when he came in,
he was given a slapstick, comedic-y, stupid load of storyline and silly bits and bobs to do, wasn't he?
Yeah, with Gay Mick the Gangster, remember him?
It was nonsense.
We'd built Dee Dee up to
Dee worked out
hugely,
fine,
hadn't we? She did work out fine in the end, but I think we'd built her up to being this. She's going to come in and she's going to slay them. She's going to be the queen of the cobbles. And when she came in, she was just like, she's all right. She's okay. I'm going to defend James at the football stadium. But it's taken. I think Dee Dee's great now, but I think I'd raised my expectations so high for her, and I don't know whether people had massively high expectations for Jack Carroll coming into it, but I think when you cast a known name, and he is, then that means a little bit more. If you've got when Tony Maudsley joined, when Jodie Prenger joined, when Claire Sweeney joined, when Maureen Lipman joined, these big names who are people have already got these preconceptions about, you're going to say, well, you better impress me to show me that you fit in at Coronation Street. Sometimes it doesn't work, Michelle Collins, but other times it does. And let's wait and see, shall we? Should we go back to the synopsis and say what Bobby's been getting up to?
He's Rob's son, and he's called Bobby, and Rob phones up, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, just as they're talking about him, Rob happens to have a case of the old burning ears syndrome.
Carla's like, I've never heard of you. How can you be Rob's son? And he says, well, Rob's only just found out I exist because my mum sent me off to him after the big C, which is Colin. And Rob's trying to phone her up. And she tells him this better be good. I would love to hear this conversation. Whatever it was much more convincing than whatever Peter and Carla said last episode. Because she comes back in the bedroom.
Wouldn't have gone amiss to have a nice little Christmas cameo from Mark Bayliss there.
Well, can't afford him. Comes back from the bedroom and she's mad at Bobby because it turns out there's actually nothing wrong with his mum. And Big Colin is horrible. And he says that he's been chucked out because he's got cerebral palsy and he got slapped out of his walking frame.
When I was writing the notes for this scene, it was really difficult because I was trying to avoid the jokes, so I wasn't just writing down every gag that he said and trying to get down what happened. So he basically insinuates that his mum died of cancer.
Yeah.
And then when Carla comes back off the phone off Rob, she's like, "Your mum didn't have cancer." And he's like, "I never said she did." "Well, you said that she had the big C." "Oh yeah, Big Colin." Sorry. You were clearly trying to make out that your mum had cancer. But anyway, apparently Big Colin's a nasty piece of work. Don't know whether he's mates with Big Garth. But he's...
I just said all this.
Did you say Big Garth?
No, I didn't say Big Garth.
No, I'm explaining to you because you were reading the notes going, what the hell was this?
No, I'm just saying.
Big Colin slapped Bobby out of his walking frame.
Well, yeah,
because he's an arse.
He slapped her out of his walking frame. So
oh yeah,
how am I
that
supposed
doesn't
to
make
follow
sense, does it?
He said, "Please let me stay," and she's like, "You can't stay because I'm not taking new bedfellows. There's not just because one man's left doesn't mean there's a spare place." And he's like, "Oh, I've got a cousin, Simon," and then
she says that sometimes Simon lives here as well. Occasionally.
Oh, great. I've got a cousin.
He's apparently got another flat with different separate mates, but sometimes, for some reason, he likes to stay with his aunt because...
he wouldn't be that pleased when he actually meets Simon.
He gives him a high five. He's chuffed.
Yeah, because he doesn't know him. So he please. Carla goes to the cafe and tells Roy about Bobby, and he says, "Look how great it's been taking Nina in. Maybe Bobby's got a permanent contract. Have you asked him how long his contract's for?" She goes back to the flat and she's like, "How long's your contract?" And he says, "At least a year."
Roy's like, when Nina came in, it was a bit weird that she was a goth, but she had a really big storyline coming up, so you never know.
Ask him what his storylines are for the next year.
Is he going to be the big issues storyline of 2024 or 2025?
You might want to be
he might be a
involved
bit
in
of a
that.
keeper, Carla.
Exactly.
You might get on the front of some more TV guides again, that's what I'm saying.
So he says, she gets back home and he's eating her dinner. And she says, "You can stay, but you need to make yourself useful." And this is when he makes the joke about he can't do the washing up because he's disabled. I would kick him out for eating my food. Also, what washing up is there to do? It's takeaway. Carla, calm down. On Friday, Bobby's not happy because Carla hasn't got, what did he say? Exploding rice balls of pain or whatever he wanted.
I don't know. Some sort of chocolate
Some sort of really
cereal.
specific thing that surely doesn't actually exist.
Mm.
And then all his stuff arrives, including a trumpet because he's quirky and fun.
Just like Ken was back in the day.
Isn't that just the symbol of like annoying characters that aren't funny?
Well, that's why I'm thinking
trumpet.
he's supposed to be annoying because they've given him a really sorry to any trumpeters.
I was going to say sorry to trumpet people, but half of you only started it because it was annoying, right? Come on. Anyway, the flat's full of his stuff later. Simon comes home and realises there's nowhere for him to stay. And Bobby's playing up the fact he's got cerebral palsy and he's having all these twinges and he can't possibly stay on the sofa any longer. So Simon says, "I'm going to go and stay with my mum, Leanne."
Not Lucy.
Really? No, she's dead.
Can I just go and have a kip at the graveyard in Australia?
Then Carla gives Bobby money for fish and chips so she can talk to Simon. And he just goes off to the Chariot Square and drinks it all away. Anyway, Simon's like...
What a cheeky chappy
That's
he
it,
is.
really, isn't it?
Well, he's also there chatting up Debbie, isn't he? And she's humouring him.
Not much there to endear me. to me.
It's that they're just like
he's just
in
obnoxious.
every way.
He's just obnoxious.
Pushing people's buttons.
Is he supposed to be sort of charismatic and cheeky? Because at the moment he's just annoying. But I am gonna wipe everything clean. Once they get to the groove of this character, this week will have never happened. In your mind, you'll forget this. This is how there's so many bad entrances to characters. And I'm just chalking this down to that. But the thing is, some people really liked it, so it's not that bad, is it?
No, some people loved it. I wonder how, what it will mean for the character of Carla, because for the last few years, so much of what Carla has been about has been her relationship with Peter, and with him now clearly gone, would the character of Carla have been left floundering? And this is it now.
She shouldn't have been, because she is owner of one of the biggest businesses on the street. So the fact that it feels to me like they're going, oh crap, she doesn't have a mum, she doesn't have a kid, so let's just make her a mum of this, even though obviously she's not, it's her nephew. It just feels like that. Oh God, give her a son.
Yeah. I suppose it's a bit like Nick. I just keep thinking of other long lost relatives that have appeared. Sam has appeared, and there was another one that was Nina. It's happening a little bit too often. It feels somewhat unrealistic, one might say. But I guess it's kind of, it could be an interesting sort of chalk and cheese, odd couple kind of relationship, because Carla is so not Bobby is so not the sort of person that Carla has got any time for. She does not suffer fools gladly.
I don't want Carla to turn into the straight man for a bunch of jokes.
Well, that's what she seems to be lining up to be, possibly.
That's not her role on this programme. Are they... I'm worried to even say this in case it manifests itself. Are they just getting ready to give her a lobotomy like every single older middle-aged woman on the street? Once you get to a certain age, they just turn you into a simpering idiot who becomes in service of your family or friends or your workplace.
I'd hope not, and
I don't
it certainly
want that to
hadn't
happen.
happened. It hadn't happened to Peter as well. That's one of the reasons why I say it hadn't happened to Peter as well. And that's one of the he hadn't been turned into a lobotomised idiot.
Yeah, but it's mostly the women it happens to.
It does mostly happen to the women, but that's one of the reasons that I'm sad to get rid of him, because with Peter we had a real solid, reliable, decent chap who could do drama very, very well. And yes, maybe his character had been drifting a little bit for a long time. His story had been the story of a recovering alcoholic, and last year when it kind of reached its climax with the transplant and he was told you can never drink again, do you think that he left because what else can you do with my character now? Because they couldn't make him drink again, could they?
No.
Are you going to miss him?
Well, he's a massively popular character and a really important part of the show, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. It's
massive fan base, pivotal for many storylines.
Not as I say, not so much in recent times, but
we can say that about practically everyone except for about 5 people every year.
This is true. I think he's the sort of character that if he went away from it for a while, and he has had periods where he's been very, very quiet, you're not necessarily thinking, where's Peter? But when he is in it, some of the scenes that he did, was it last year or the year before? Like, you remember when he was dosing himself up with whiskey and he was shaking and he was having those convulsions on the floor? He was so good there. That was some of the most gripped that I'd been in Corrie in a scene that wasn't here's a stunt sort of thing. So I think
very fantastic
they've lost a real talent there, and I hope that it's not the
forever
end for him. Maybe it will be. I guess we will just have to wait and see.
In with your thoughts.
Yes,
about
we need to do an updated
Peter.
character profile of Peter, because the last time that we did him, I think, was episode 80 or something around then. So it was about 10 years ago nearly that we profiled him last. So no doubt we'll do an updated one in the coming weeks. But we've got other things to do before then, so still plenty of time to get your own thoughts in as well. Okay, Baileys then, Gemma. Are you ready for this?
Bring out the Baileys for Christmas, that's what I say.
Yeah, well,
everybody likes a big totter of Baileys, don't they? Give me a glass or something, just break them out.
Well, this was a bit of Baileys and a little bit of wine as well, wasn't it? Like, oh, woe is me.
You can't mix Baileys and wine together, you crazy son of a gun.
Right, okay, so we only got to see a little bit of this on Monday when they're opening their very meagre present selection. And Ed's there going, oh, look at this, it's my watch, how amazing.
Joel, bread sauce you shouldn't have. I told you not to.
Ed is feeling massively guilty because he's obviously been responsible for nobody else having a present, and he's got a watch inscribed with "For the world's best dad, our hero."
Never do that.
No, and then they go along to the bistro to have
didn't get this.
The leftovers.
I know. Did nobody just buy any food?
Well, they didn't. Well,
because he was given.
But they're planning to just have a turkey.
Yeah, because he was told to go and buy the turkey, and he got given like £125. And if he listened to the podcast, he'd know you don't need that much money. But what did happen? They just didn't. They got to Christmas Day and they all just weren't going to have any food until Alia texted them.
Yeah. I think that Ed must have pawned his potatoes as well.
I know. Do you think that's what happened?
And what did you get for a bag of Maris Pipers down Bargain Anza?
Yeah. I mean, we all went. I wasn't paying attention. You guys know. But if you weren't paying attention, you might have insinuated from this that they also had their Christmas dinner stolen, which is actually a very comical image. Just imagine, what's this guy's name?
Follow the trail of peas. What, Tony?
Tony's wife opening it going, I told you what, it's a hairdryer, this is a turkey!
Anyway, so Wednesday comes along and Ed's not even wearing the watch because he feels so guilty about having it. And he says, look, you should just give your money back and buy Glory a present. Michael says, no.
Because it's been engraved, you idiot.
You can't, yeah, so it's too late now.
Mind you, we didn't actually put your name on it. We just said to the world's best dad. So actually, it could be any man with children. They're all the world's best dads, aren't they?
Yeah, can't give it to Peter Barlow, but it's too late to give it to him anyway now. Anyway, then Craig comes round and, Craig is Weatherfield's best coffer. He's come to talk about the burglary. Not the burglary, just the burglary.
Makes me paranoid, I say that.
You're not a police officer, Gemma. You're perfectly allowed to say burglary instead of burglary.
Burglary.
But if your job is to uphold the law, then you've got to pronounce things correctly.
I wonder if I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
If you've been arrested for burglary, are you allowed to
get off on a technicality?
Yeah, say,
Your Honour, this crime doesn't exist.
I was charged with burglary, and that doesn't exist, Your Honour.
And then the judge says, "I'll let him off." Bang, bang. I shouldn't even have this gavel, to be honest with you. But they gave it to me.
Anyway, Craig, surprise, surprise, has been able to find no clues, apart from the fact that the only prints around were his mate Tony's. Of course, it couldn't be him, could it? No other leads, no other witnesses. Nothing else we can do. Sorry,
that's the most
Christmas.
realistic thing that's ever happened in the show.
And
the police say we don't care.
And Weatherfield police are just useless. Amy was probably there standing outside the door saying, "You can't do anything."
They don't have the budget.
Oh, you can't even solve men's problems. I thought it was just women's crimes that you couldn't solve.
Oh, is it because it was a girl's toy that they stole?
Yeah. Yeah, solidarity with glory, says Amy. Let's go and spike some men.
Let's go and throw a Wendy house at a man. No, listen, they don't have the budget to do anything. Just like teachers don't have the budget, and the NHS doesn't have the budget. They don't have the money or the people to do any of this. They're like, well, maybe you shouldn't have left.
Plenty of other crimes going on in Weatherfield.
Maybe you shouldn't have left your presents under the tree. Did you think of that?
Yeah, if you left them unattended, they should have been chained. Mm-hmm. Right, so Joel comes to see how Ed's doing in the yard later, and he's worried that all of this might refuel his gambling addiction, because don't forget, everybody, Joel knows that Ed's a massive gambler. And Ed's like, no, I'm fine. Just Joel says, well, luckily for you, I've got a rich mate. Probably I should have mentioned this earlier, but I do know somebody down south who's looking for a good builder to do a job. Have this one on me, Ed. And he's like, thank you very much.
What's going to happen with that then?
Who knows? Well, we'll see. Joel,
don't know what to make
the more I see of Joel, He's still very bland.
Bread sauce.
But he's
call him bread sauce.
He's got a bit of spice to his bread sauce.
He's got a bit of nutmeg in there.
He has, just we saw at the end of this scene. Yeah, it's going to be It's going to be hollandaise before you know. Is that spicy? No.
What
am I thinking?
Hollandaise?
No, that's totally different. I
bread
can't.
sauce and hollandaise.
I can't make culinary jokes.
If I made
I know nothing about it.
Eggs Benedict with breads, God, that makes me feel sick to even contemplate that. Or imagine lumpy bits of with a poached egg mixing together.
At the factory. Now, we thought it might take a little bit of time before this happens, but Sean and Izzy have already been able to track down this stolen Wendy house online.
Did they even... No, they didn't.
What?
They just bought it.
No, they found it online.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did. They said they found it on a pawn shop's website.
Yes, but they weren't trying to buy the same one.
Oh, no, they weren't.
That's what you just...
Oh, no. They because they're kind-hearted citizens, say, we hear that your granddaughter Glory has lost out on having a Wendy house for Christmas.
So we've got a second
Here is one that we found online. It almost looks like yours. And Michael opens it up and pulls out the door, the custom-made number 3, and says, Stone the Crows.
It's the same one.
It is the same ones. Hooray. No, wait, what's going on here?
Not hooray.
Not hooray. How did this even happen? I'm going to go to the shop and find out if they've got CCTV of it. Well, that doesn't work for him, but luckily for him, he bumps into Craig later. He says, can you make yourself useful and get the pawn shop to give us their CCTV footage so we can find out who pawned this Wendy house? Thank you.
Answer, no.
No, Craig will help him with that one.
No, it doesn't work.
Ed's at an addiction meeting again later, 27th of December.
If you had £1 every time that gambling specifically gets called a disease on this programme,
it's a disease.
You'd have enough money to get Bobby drunk in Chariot Square Hotel for at least half an hour.
We are reminded.
I don't think I've ever had
often.
people so forcefully insist to me that gambling's a disease.
As we had during this story. I know.
It's just like such an unnatural way to describe it.
Dr. Gaddis's corridors are probably lined with gambling addicts, aren't they?
What's wrong with you? Oh.
Touch of the old gambling, is it?
I can't stop spinning roulette wheels. It's giving me, what's it called? Carpal tunnel.
You're right. We're not downplaying it, but the scripts are really hammering it home. It's a disease.
It feels like somebody's told them you have to make clear that it's a disease.
It's not a dramatic, fun storyline. This is an issues storyline.
It's not always helpful to use terminology like this either, I don't think. Because it doesn't make sense to people to call it a disease. I don't think it is in the same way that we understand diseases.
It's not as bad as this cough that I've had this past few weeks.
Not as bad as the big C.
Not as bad as the big C.
Well, do you know what I'm saying? I'm not criticising anybody for trying to really make sure that people understand this, and I know it's without his control a lot of the time. Yes, but calling it a disease so again and again and again has not convinced me, and I'm ready to be convinced.
It's like your sex addiction, isn't it? Russell Brand. It's a disease.
Well, I don't... Yeah, I think we just... Because I think the problem is we don't have the vocabulary properly to talk about it, so we have to borrow it from somewhere else.
Well, we also personally don't have any knowledge of anybody who's had this. We've got no experience of this whatsoever, have we?
I think it's also because it's not chemically driven in the same way that alcoholism is. So if you say, it's a disease, alcoholism is a disease, you can say, I can see why, because the chemicals...
I mean, this gets you chemically, it's got the old endorphins going around.
I know, but you're ingesting something, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. But I really do not want to downplay it.
No.
But it's the amount that they're
using that specific word.
But what I'm enjoying about it, though, is Sarge. He's kind of entertaining, Sarge. The way that old Pork Pie is acting it is kind of a little bit theatrical, and he often looks off as if he's talking to people in the back of the audience. But when he says, "It's a weakness," and I was like, he's a proper cranky old man. He's a very anti-woke, isn't he? This guy.
I do.
And I find when he came in, I thought, what's the point of this character? Do we need an extra Bailey in the Bale? But he's interesting in that he's holding this very, very old school.
Well, he's been told it's a disease. He's been told it's a disease, and he's kind of trying to understand.
I don't think he is.
Well, he's trying a bit more than I think I would do if I was an old lady.
I can imagine there are the tiniest shades of Blanche in some of what he's saying, isn't there?
Well,
not on the same page whatsoever, but I can totally imagine her if Deirdre had got a gambling addiction, or Ken or something, and people have been saying, "Oh, Gran, don't you know it's a disease?" Blanche should have been saying, "Bloody, of course it's not."
No.
Massive.
This is what I'm going to be like when I'm an old lady and my granddaughter comes to me and say, "Oh, but I'm in love with an android." I'd be like, "For goodness sake, stupid." Of course
I know, we will all grow up to be Sarge one day, won't we? It's just whatever it is.
You can't say that. That's robotist. Well, I don't care. When I was a kid, nobody fell in love with a robot. We were fine.
Anyway, he's told at this support group that it's probably best that he tells his family, and what a surprise! He's just about to tell the family later when, sadly, they find out for themselves already. Because Craig goes Michael and Dee Dee, go to the police station later, because Craig's got the CCTV footage that he gives them, and they open it up, and it's a little bit grainy, but it's all right. Enhanced Sector 4. Perfectly. It's Ed.
What?
It's Ed giving the Wendy house to the pawn shop. Oh my gosh! And Dee Dee's like,
Let's not
talk about this anymore. Craig, can you turn a blind eye to this crime, please? Go on. I can't believe what a massive hypocrite Dee Dee was this week, especially when on Friday she was marching down the police station herself to dob Ed and Ronnie in for all their insider trading. I think.
Do you remember how
much? It feels like quite a convenient way of getting out of it, but I'd like to think that Dee Dee would have a bit more integrity than she showed on Wednesday's episode.
Do you remember how much soul searching and hand wringing went on when Craig had to try to save Faye and Emma from killing a man?
Yeah.
And now he's like, yeah, I've done loads of stuff before.
He's massive Ben Copper, isn't he? Seriously.
Honestly, the longer I'm in this job, the more I can see why Ben Coppers exist.
He's just too nice, and he'll turn a blind eye to look after his friends. Well, This is why in real life policemen don't actually tread the beat, or whatever the word is, walk the beat along this road that they live in with all their friends and family, because then you don't have to deal with accidentally arresting your mates and your neighbours.
I can just imagine him going back home to his beautiful purple sequined fluffy diary and opening it up, and it says Craig's 2023 resolutions, and the top one, the only one, is solve a crime.
Yeah.
And he opens the book and he looks at it and he just shakes his head, and then he looks at the calendar.
Maybe I'll carry it over to next year.
He sees how many days are left in the year, and then he turns back to his page and he crosses out 2023 and he writes 2024. And then he goes, that's right, Craig, don't worry, we can do it.
Oh, well, yeah, no one to see ID didn't keep him. But he needs to get in trouble for this, but I think he's possibly going to get away with it. No,
and also, nobody's going to ask him, what did you do this afternoon? You went to check out CCTV and you were using one of our rooms to view it.
See, I don't know much about the police. No. I watched the bill. But I kind of thought that police mostly worked in partners. Hasn't he got a friend at work that can... Like, where's Jess? Do police officers often do this kind of thing on their own? Isn't that the point that they have to have a colleague there with them that they can collude with, or make sure, if one of them's bent and the other one's there to say, "Oh no, you don't."
Oh, I don't think we should be doing this.
I'm going to report you to line of duty. Actually,
well, it's cutbacks.
Yes, it is. It's police cutbacks. Craig has to work on his own. Okay. Anyway, so Ed's off the hook there for the time being. Well, with the law anyway. So the Baileys all gather at number 3. Ed comes in the door. He's just about to say, "Oh, I'm a massive gambler," but they tell him what they found out. And, "Dad, how could you do this to us?" And he says, "Oh, I've been gambling. He basically recounts the last couple of months' worth of storylines to them. He says, I thought I've cured my addiction, but obviously not. I got my money from various places. I borrowed it from the business account. I even took out a credit card in Norris's name. I just kept losing. I had the odd win, but then I just get worse and worse. So I took out more loans. And they're like, how bad is this, Dad? And he's like, we could lose the house. So he tells them about have taken a loan out against the house.
Well, didn't
and
it turn
threatening
from...
them to repossess. It's worse than I thought it was.
It turned from we could lose the house to we are going to lose the house by Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know about this, did we?
I don't know whether we knew about
I don't think we knew he took out a loan. I don't know.
I can't remember.
He says, look, we're all right, but Norris Cole's in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Well, he's in trouble now because he's taking out a loan for someone in the... That's fraud. Surely he's going to prison for that.
But nobody knows about that. Well, Dee Dee knows, and Michael and Ronnie, but they're not gonna dob him in about that, are they? Or maybe that's what Dee Dee was going to do today.
If prison was actually a place where you got rehabilitation and help for your problems, it would be the best place for him. But as it is, I can't see that would be a good idea.
No, I don't think so. I think he just needs help. I liked how they had different reactions from the kids. Michael's maybe a little bit over the top and saying, well, Dad, you can get out of your house then. I know that he's upset with him, especially with all the history, and Ed's gambling was what caused them to lose the last house, and Michael had to take the blame for it. But I think Michael was being a bit rich, trying to order Ed out of the house.
No, I think he was right. I think he is right to be furious.
He was right to be furious. He was absolutely right to be furious. But if I was that Michael, and I would say, well, I'm leaving. Maybe
he's got nowhere. Yeah, but he's got a baby and nowhere to go.
Who's Dee Dee living with at the moment? Is
by herself? A selfish cow.
Yeah, he could take Dee Dee in. Be a bit of a Gooseberry in the Dee Dee Joel situation.
Dee Dee doesn't want to take anyone in, but if anyone's gonna storm out, then yeah, maybe Michael should have taken Dee Dee and gone. Then Sarge would have been left with Ed overnight.
Oh gosh,
one of them would have turned up dead probably.
Yeah. So Michael's fuming. Dee Dee's a little bit more understanding. Sarge is completely not understanding in the slightest.
I think Sarge is secretly pleased because he knew all along that Ed was the worst child.
Yeah. Well, this is what
I knew it.
I don't think that Sarge looks down his nose at Ed as much as Ed thinks he does. I think Ed's built up this idea in his mind that Ronnie's the golden child, ergo everything he does is bad in Sarge's eyes. It is. It's not like that, but Sarge doesn't get it, and he says, this is shameful. It's you're weak. And Dee Dee says, look, we need to find another solution here, because Michael wants to tell Aggie. Ronnie's like, we can't let Aggie we can't find Aggie we can't let Aggie know about this. She's already got enough on her plate with Auntie Corona. So Dee Dee says, addiction is an illness. I don't know whether any of you knew this, but...
It's an illness.
Addiction's an illness. And Sarge says, no, it's a weakness. Michael's like, yeah, out you go, Ed. And so off he wallows. He wants to be alone. And at the end of the episode, we think that Ed has finally learned a lesson, but no, he's on the phone to his bank, pretending to be Ronnie, saying, oh, can you transfer some money? I want the whole of the Eduron account transferred into me brother Ed's account, please. And he's like, oh, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. When I saw this... I thought that we were actually making a bit of headway into the story up until this point, but when we had this scene on Wednesday at the end, I thought, are we really just going round this roundabout again?
I like this development a little bit because it gave Ronnie something to think about.
Friday's episode was kind of fun, but it's like it felt like Ed can't get any worse, but then he does. And then we get to have the family having a go at him again. And we get to have Dee Dee defend him again. And we get to have Sarge be disappointed again. And we get to have Ed wallowing and feeling sorry for himself again. Except this time he does it in Scally's Alley over at the precinct, doesn't he?
You can't, just when you think it can't get worse.
Yeah, but read the room, Coronation Street. People don't need this storyline to run for much longer.
Oh. I was quite enjoying... Yeah, carry on.
I was enjoying it a bit more this week.
I like this. The reason I like this is because when you get... I mean, you can fill in. Go on, carry on.
No.
No, because I'll get to it when I get to it.
Oh, okay, fine. So, Michael's mad. in the house later, I've written in the notes, Michael's mad at number 3, like shouting at the house.
You stupid Wendy house.
His head is dead to me. I just feel like he's overreacting a little bit.
No. If your dad, like you don't know what it feels like to not have complete and utter faith in your parents.
I know.
Your whole life, your parents have been really good. Same with me. They've done nothing but do everything they could to make my life as good as it can be. When they have something to give me, they give it to me. Even if I don't need it, they want me to do well, and they love me and cherish me, and I feel safe and always protected by them. How would you feel if your parent betrayed you time and time again to the point at which they could be making you and your daughter homeless? After all these secrets and telling you to your face over and over again and putting you in jeopardy and making you out to be the enemy to everybody else, and then they want you, and then, you're supposed to be okay with it.
It just makes me feel a bit sad because the Baileys are such a tight-knit family, and they're one of Corrie's few examples of a traditional-ish sort of family. Yeah. And they've obviously got a lot of love for each other. There's, we've seen that they have been, in the past, they had religious views, which is obviously big on family. Dee Dee still is, although it doesn't look like she was at church on Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. And I don't like the idea of this tight unit falling apart necessarily if it has to.
But it makes the betrayal worse when you're so close.
Yeah, I know. And I think, I've got no worries that Michael won't come round to Ed eventually, because Michael, at his heart, is a nice guy, isn't he? He strikes me as a very forgiving soul, and also probably a soul that is fairly easy to not manipulate, but to convince and to calm down. Anyway, so he's
Joel's
mad.
Not surprised.
No, Joel knew about it already. So Dee Dee,
mad about
the next, she's not so mad at Ed. No, I think is she mad at Ed? I can't remember.
She's mad at Ronnie and Joel because they both reveal that they knew about this, and Dee Dee's like, "You idiot!
Oh yeah,
you told me."
That's right. Yeah, so she's mad that he knew all along, and Ronnie knew all along. Yeah, you're dumped, Joel. Sorry, it was good while it lasted.
Not really.
Maybe. She says, right, out you both go. So we then cut to the precinct where Ed is looking very sorry for himself in the alley there.
Just sitting on the floor. There's a bench over there.
He's on a bit of cardboard. He's all right. Don't feel sorry for him.
He's trying to panhandle for money so he can go down the bookies.
He probably would, though. That's the thing. We don't know what he's done with this money because I think at the beginning of the episode we hear from Dee Dee, maybe, I can't remember, that Ed has told them that he's stayed at a hotel overnight, but no, it's been in the alley, and who should come across him but Todd for some reason?
Yeah, that was weird.
Who sits and listens to his woes for a bit, but then he gets his eye distracted by a hunky Nigerian, and then he probably, when he was lying in bed and he'd finished his little Moses fantasies, he's like, "Oh yeah, Ed was homeless on the street. I knew I should have done something about that." Whoops, down me and my mojo.
Well, he says, this has happened, but the worst bit is they don't know everything.
No, they do not know everything, and we find out what that everything is later when he tells them that he's gambled all the company money away at the casino. They basically have another Bailey meeting, don't they?
And this is what great.
Comes out.
Ronnie's trying to chair it and being reasonable and stuff, and he says, "Blood is thicker than money." Which, how that got in the show, I don't know. Who thought that was a good phrase? Blood is thicker than money. No, it's not, though. What do you mean?
If I had a gold bullion and melted it down, I think I'd know which one was the most viscous there.
Well, money's not a liquid, Ronnie. Sit down.
Haven't you heard of liquid assets, Gemma?
No, son. Anyway, so Ronnie's trying to, mediate, and then Ed sobbingly confesses that he's gone to the casino and cleared out the company funds. And Ronnie's like, it affects me now.
Yeah.
And he suddenly decided that they don't have to be reasonable at all.
As silly as I think the situation is, I still will I still do feel really bad for Ed, and when he does his woe is me act, I do.
I know, me too. I feel bad for him.
I do really feel bad for him.
It's a disease.
It's a disease, isn't it? Yeah. He's in above his head, and you can see that he's paddling away furiously, but he just can't help himself. Yeah. I think that Trevor is doing a pretty decent job, I'm going to say, of portraying addict.
I think this is great.
Yeah,
I don't want anyone to think that we're making fun of some of this, that we don't take this seriously. But we can't have everything. Can't not make fun of
I would not throw Ed out. I'd help him somehow.
No, you wouldn't. If he kept doing it. We've talked about addicts before on this. We've spoken about it before.
Anyway, Ed brings up the insider trading. I suppose it must have been because he dumps Ronnie in it, doesn't he? And Ronnie's like, Dee Dee's like, you were doing insider trading with the Rovers, with the Newton and Ridley stuff.
I was like, oh, it's a victimless crime.
I loved Sarge. Sarge was brilliant. Saying, well, I think that Ronnie made some wise business decisions. I think that's what anyone would have done. And that's like, here we go, you're back in Golden Boy again. Sarge just doesn't get it. Like he's too old school. He doesn't live in the modern world, does he?
Well, I think a lot of people felt the same way about what Ronnie did, though. I was saying the same thing, like, is it really bad?
Is it really a crime? Well,
Isn't
Dee Dee says
like
yes.
Throwing a pie at a politician is not technically a crime, it's just illegal.
But then Dee Dee's mad at Ronnie because not only has he done that, but that's what apparently put the whiff of gambling under Ed's nose, which it did back in the summer. That's exactly how this whole thing started. It's my legal duty to go to the police, says Dee Dee. Forget about what happened the other day when I was literally trying to tell a policeman to turn the blind eye.
That's why she starts crying when she goes into the police station. She's like, this is going to look so embarrassing in front of Craig.
So anyway, she... at the yard later, Ed's on the phone to Aggie saying, everything's fine, I've had a lovely Christmas. Yeah, she loved a Wendy ass. And Ronnie comes over and says, look, sorry for putting you on the dodgy you path to gambling, Ed, but that's all I'm sorry for. Also, by the way, sorry to mention to you, but Dee Dee's about to shop us to the police, so we're kind of in trouble. Dee Dee turns up at the station. She's going to get a loyalty card for that station at the moment, isn't she? She's very conflicted. She doesn't want to really do it, but the drama is too much to resist.
I can't resist it.
Oh, look, there's Joel.
Oh, cry,
Didn't see you there, Joel. And then, she has a cry into his chest.
I'm just going outside for a bread sauce sandwich. Do you want to sit in the car and have some?
I'm going to have a vape. It's bread sauce flavour. What's the blandest vape that you've got?
I'm sorry, I keep making funny noises, but I've done something to my ribs and I can't really laugh properly.
Yes, Gemma has got it. How's your back doing? You had a bad back yesterday.
I can't laugh or cough.
We did love the pantomime, but the seats weren't the best at the Derby Arena, and it didn't help Gemma's poor back. Anyway, luckily for Ed, Joel's able to cajole Dee Dee into coming into his car and
you think
not
that's
shopping.
His full name?
What?
Cajole Bread Sauce Whiteman.
Probably is his name, yeah. Anyway, they have a kiss and Dee Dee says, oh, Ed's because he doesn't know everything at the moment, does he? She tells him about the insider trading and gambling away everything from the business account, but you won't tell anyone, will you, Joel? And the look in Joel's eyes, he's just got a spark of personality in there, and I don't know what he's going to do.
You seem to think he's up to something, but I don't.
It feels like... I don't know what it is. I
think he was just shocked.
I'm not excited enough about him to concoct the story off the top of my head.
I'm secretly rooting for Joel. More than anybody on the show.
I think he's going to be doing a bit of blackmailing. I think he is.
Okay.
Anyway, Dee Dee comes into the yard later and finds Ed, and he's like, don't report Ronnie, you can report me, but don't report him. And she says, I'm not reporting either of you.
Do you know what?
We're going to get through this, but you might need to sell the yard and also the flat. And you remember Grace? Remember she's got a flat. She's got a house that you and Mum got. I think they got an auction, and then she blackmails them into giving it to her last year. Remember that, everybody? 2 years ago, we might need to sell them. Oh, there's no problem then, is it? I think everybody had forgotten about this house, but it seems like quite a convenient source of income, really.
Two things that annoy me here. One is when somebody says, oh, you can do this to me, but not to that person. When they know that there's no way that they could get in trouble without the other person being implicated. So him saying, oh, I don't mind if I get in trouble, but not Ronnie. You know that's not going to happen, Ed, you dumb idiot. There's no way that you can go down for it without Ronnie. So shut up, trying to be selfless, because you're not. You're just being self-indulgent. And secondly, on Coronation Street, when somebody gets into financial troubles, they're like, oh, I've lost everything. I'm going to have to sell my flat, my business, my second house, my yacht, my Mercedes-Benz, and all of my kebab shops.
Yeah. I know.
I can't cry too hard for you because you have multiple things that you can sell.
I'm wondering whether we're going to have a return for Miss Vickers.
Well, they can't sell her place because it belongs to Aggie and she doesn't know.
Oh, yes, that's a good point, isn't it? I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But it got a bit more interesting on Friday, I will give it that. But it's about time that the story drew to some sort of conclusion.
Michael. What? It's time to pull a cracker.
Pull a cracker?
Yeah.
Okay. This is...
Hang on.
What?
Go on.
I could have done without the walking in on them bonking on Monday.
I didn't like it because it was silly, and I don't like that. I didn't like it with Sally and Tim either. I just don't like it.
Sometimes I don't mind.
I didn't mind the bath one because it was sweet and it felt like character building. The bath one was
a really, really great scene. But it feels... I'm just thinking there's just a little bit too much shagging involved in this MND story. And I get what they're going for. Well, you know, people who are going through these difficult times, and if they've got a terminal diagnosis, they've still got their needs, etc., etc.
Well, they're still human.
Yeah, I know. But it feels like they're leaning into it a little bit too much. And then, you know, on Wednesday's episode, at the end of it, they're both sitting on the sofa, Billy and Paul saying, that Moses, he was a bit of all right. Like, come on, gents, tone it down. I just think it was unnecessary on Monday to have them. And maybe that's the prude in me. Especially as Billy, you know, he'd lied to everybody and said...
off church.
Yeah. I know. He is working back at the church again, isn't he? I think in the bath time scene, one of the things he says to Paul was... that he had his job offered to him back at the church again. I can't remember whether he took it or not. But I would have thought that maybe on Christmas morning he might want to go. Same with Paul. Tell you what, I think what would have been an interesting story, instead of them being caught bonking, you know, Paul has supposedly found God, and I think he's maybe forgotten about him again. But wouldn't it be kind of funny if... Because it seems like Paul... was keeping it a secret, wasn't he, that he was going to church, and it was this big revelation to Billy. Maybe when they're doing a load of sneaking about, what if the characters had thought that they were up to nookie, but they were actually at church, and then they had been surprised at being in church?
It doesn't work.
Is it?
I see where you're going with it.
I think that would have been quite sweet. I think that it would have been very much in character for them to have wanted to go to church on that Christmas morning, especially Billy. Especially Paul. If he's just converted, if he's just been baptised, he should be wanting to do that sort of thing on Christmas Day now. And I think that would have been quite funny if they'd have been sneaking off and we'd have thought they'd been doing one thing, but they're actually going to church. That could have been a really nice kind of calm, holy, sort of serene moment for the two of them.
But it wouldn't have involved Billy wandering around with a Santa hat over his penis.
No, he didn't. He had a pillow over his willy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He had
a
Santa hat on his head.
Okay. I haven't watched it as many times as I think some people have that clip.
No, I would have preferred to have seen them have a lovely character moment in the church on Christmas. But anyway,
just a pair of prudes, aren't we?
No, I yes, in some ways, but I just think that would have been nice. I think
I get you.
Anyone else?
On Monday, Gemma's...
No, we've kind of said this already, haven't we? Monday's episode is them getting caught bonking and then having a Zoom call with Bernie from prison, because apparently you can do that now. Do they let you do video calls from prison if it's Christmas? Or is it just like whenever you fancy? I don't know. But there's a bit of a sentimental... I suppose that's the sentimentality, isn't it? When she's here's Away in the Manger playing in the background and they have a sing-along together. It didn't really work for me. But that's Monday. But Wednesday is when we get the introduction of new character Moses. 4, isn't he something, Gemma? Mm-hmm. Yes, Gemma's not.
Am I doing this or you?
It's me.
Didn't you just do this one?
Did I do that one? Oh yeah, you did the Baileys. No, I did the Baileys. I do apologise. I wasn't meaning. This, then? No. I wasn't meaning to steal your thunder.
It's not my thunder.
Take it.
Is it my go?
It is your go. It is your go.
Oh, that's why I was getting confused when you started batting in.
I forgot. I thought it was my go, but it is your go. I want to talk about Paul. I
think Coronation Street needs to have more drama like this.
People arguing over which
whose
story
turn it is.
You go right ahead, my darling. What happened on Wednesday and Friday?
Gemma's finding it hilarious that Billy and Paul got walked in on. Paul's got a cramp in his back, and Billy says that Jim, the PA, is coming over. And this is the one everyone was accusing of murdering Shelley.
He did it. I'll tell you. Paul, that Jim... They wouldn't be bringing him back in. I'm convinced. I am completely convinced.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
That Jim bumped off Shelley with her permission. No. And that's why they did. That's why they had Paul sort of interested in the idea back in May, June sort of time. And so that when it comes up again in the next, when he's back in the next few months, it's not going to seem like it's going to come out of nowhere because it's just going to be uncovering an idea he had last summer.
So you think there's going to be a serial killer as a PA?
Yes.
And that's not going
to
rile
We always need to have
a
serial killer on the street.
Right. So Paul's not really looking forward to the idea that he's going to have to rely on somebody dressing him and having to do toiletries and things.
But at least it's Jim.
Someone I know. When the guy turns up, it's not Jim at all. It's a guy called Moses because Jim has slipped a disc.
He didn't really know Jim that well, did he? How many scenes has Jim been in? I assume Paul did talk to Jim a few times off camera, but
it's when it's knowing somebody. It makes a big difference. Makes a big difference.
I don't know whether I'd rather have somebody who I didn't know.
Every time?
No, doing something like that.
Get me a new PA.
I don't know whether I'd want somebody that.
No, listen, you haven't been in that situation before, so you really don't know what you're talking about. Okay. But when you have to rely on somebody and you're very, very vulnerable, having a familiar face is good.
Yeah.
And you're thinking along the lines of people that you know. This is somebody that you know solely in the capacity of caring for you. So it's not awkward the same way it would be if, Rachel came round. You know what I'm saying?
Very true.
There's somebody that's there to help you, and when it's somebody different, Paul got really miffed off.
He was kind of rude on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's fine to be surprised and a little bit disappointed that the person you were expecting doesn't come, but he was
very
mega rude and yeah, Moses, you can go home.
Yeah, I know he was rude, but again, unless if you've ever been in that situation. Especially if you're caught off guard.
It just didn't.
It wasn't really within his character.
As what Paul would have done.
But Paul is being challenged in many ways, and sometimes he's not going to be as good of a person as he would hope to be. Same as anybody would be who's in pain and vulnerable. So, don't like Moses, and Tittle. He
sorts his back out.
Helps him by rubbing his back, and Paul's. Just loves him now because he's managed to get him ready and get him dressed. And
there was a scene where I think you pointed it out when we were watching it when Moses wheels him into the flat after getting him washed and dressed, but he's wheeling him in from the direction of the
he comes from the other direction.
The entrance hall.
I'm pretty sure that the bathroom has been there before though. I think they've got 2. Anyway.
It's a very, very spacious flat.
Anywhere you want, there's a bathroom. So he's left Nigeria because of personal issues, and he has a physiotherapist qualification, but they aren't recognised here, which is why he's working as a carer. And Paul says, sorry as a git, but Moses says, well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Moses is very good-humoured about it, isn't he? Paul says, well, I think Moses forgives him, and Paul says, well, I don't remember what it says, but Moses basically says, yes, you were a bit of a git, weren't you? He's a nice chap.
Of course he is. Billy and Paul tell Gemma about how great he is, and he's so sexy, which I really think is unprofessional, and I'd be creeped out. If this was a good woman and they were talking about her like that would be weird and gross. This guy is just trying to do his job. They don't even know if he's gay. He comes from Nigeria.
Well, there's insinuations here.
Yeah, that he's been driven out of his country.
Personal issues in Nigeria. I did a bit of Googling about this, and it's...
What did you Google about?
Homosexuality in Nigeria, and they don't like it so much.
They don't really like it.
No.
Yeah, but, you know, because it's a very religious country.
Yeah.
So assuming that he's gay just because he's from Nigeria is a bad move, isn't it? Because it's more likely that he isn't.
It was. I found it odd slightly in today's episode when they were trying to egg Todd on to asking him out when they didn't know for sure.
No, I know. They're like, this is Corrie. Of course he's gay. Moses comes to the flat. He's going to take Paul to the shops because Billy's very busy. Todd and Eileen perv over him. Again, totally inappropriate if this was not a big, like, strapping guy. If this was like a nice petite little nurse woman who's just like being thrown into a den of perverts.
Can you imagine if it was completely switched sexes?
Yeah.
And it was Gemma who was dying of MND and she was there with her lesbian girlfriend, and then this sexy nurse rocks up and they're drooling. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good look. But it's funny if the men do it.
Todd goes over to help them, fawns over Moses. Paul gives him jokes about it, and then they tell him to ask him out, and he says no.
Run out of steam on that one there, darling.
But I want to say I really loved Paul asking Billy, "Do you think Bigfoot's real?" Because yesterday, me and you were having you were listening to a podcast, and they said, "Do you think what's your favourite cryptid?" They were saying,
"What's your favourite cryptid?"
And you said, "What's your favourite cryptid?" And I had to pause the podcast to give you like a 10-minute lecture about what my favourite cryptid was.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your impressions of Moses apart from the obvious? No. How hot is he?
Bigfoot is real.
No, but I quite like Moses. He's not striking me at the moment as a long-term character, but I've seen lots of people online suggesting that he's going to be, like, before today's episode, people were saying, "Oh, is he going to be like Billy's new love interest?" I really hope that. I don't need there to be any cheating in the in the Paul and Billy marriage before Paul shuffles off his mortal coil, but then to have somebody there that's ready to scoop Billy up as soon as Paul does die feels a bit too Daniel. Soon as well. So I don't mind the idea that it's Todd. I don't know, they don't seem like a great match at the moment. Moses is too nice and pure and gentle, and Todd's a massive schemer.
Yeah.
And he didn't strike me as necessarily being Todd's type either. I don't know.
No.
But he seemed nice.
No. They're just two men who happen to be gay, so therefore they've got to get into a relationship with each other.
So even you're making an assumption about Moses now. Maybe that's going to be the massive twist.
Maybe he kicked him out of Nigeria because he wouldn't stop murdering gay people. We don't know. That could be his personal problem.
Maybe he's polyamorous and he's just got a bundle of wives back at home. Yeah, maybe.
Right, that's it.
Anyway, that was... did you enjoying that?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Right, Christmas Eve.
I loved it.
You got plenty to say when you're ragging on Bobby in the Carla and Peter episode on Boxing Day.
When Paul was being moody at Moses, I was like, he's not a massive racist, is he? What is this where this is going? I was really surprised that he wasn't like. I thought it was weird that he was like there was no. If I was Moses, I'd get that impression that he was racist, wouldn't you? Yeah. If you walk into a house and immediately this guy's like, you can get lost, wouldn't you just go, I see you have a problem with me. I wonder what that could be.
I don't know. I would imagine that some carers, lots of carers would encounter clients, not prejudice, but people who don't really want them to be there, and that aren't ready to give up their independence yet. True. And so he probably just thought it was another, somebody like this that thinks that they can do it themselves. But obviously Paul struggles for that now. Okay, Evelyn then. So we do get that scene on Christmas Day episode where Roy presents her with a book, which she thinks is lovely. And it looks like you get again the slight moment of, is there some kind of electric spark? Is there a bit of romance between the two of them? And it turns into nothing. I think that they're just going to keep on teasing that. I don't think it's going anywhere. And Mary's bouncing on a ball. But the main thing with this story is Wednesday, because do you remember, Gemma? Do you remember last week when Cassie nicked that Porsche and then she scratched it and she left it in the garage with Abby's tool trolley lined up next to it to make it?
It was such an amazing idea.
Exactly what Cassie wanted to happen and was obviously going to happen happened on Wednesday, because Kevin finds it and it's like, Abby, is this your tool trolley? You've left a scratch down it. What you doing, woman? And Abby's like, by the end of the episode, she's like, oh yes, I'm sorry, Kevin, it must have been me. But the scratch on it wasn't the same shape as anything on the tool trolley, so I don't know. Cassie's there trying to get in between them and say, yeah, it was Abby. Did you get a feeling of Cassie was a bit disappointed that Kevin was snuggling with Abby by the end of the episode and all forgiven with her? Cassie was kind of giving him a bit of a look like, oh, foiled curses. I want a bit of Webster action for myself.
No, but when she found them arguing, I had an image in my mind of that little gif of the raccoon with its little tiny paws rubbing them together with an evil smile.
Yeah, exactly.
She definitely seems like an evil raccoon.
She's a stirrer. She just wanted to get away with it, I suppose, which she did at the end of the day, because Kevin's cleaned up the scratch and everything's okay. But Roy's not happy to know that he was involved in felonious caperings on Christmas Eve. For a man that
is so on the up and up, he gets involved in a lot of those sorts of things, doesn't he?
I know, he's a bit of a trouble magnet, is Roy.
Yeah, he is.
Anyway, that's basically all that happened there. It feels like Cassie's going bad again. And I thought that they were trying to redeem her character a little bit.
I think that they
if they're having her purposefully try and cover up her own misdeeds and drop Abby in it, then I'm gonna have to have words with her. Gemma, you got the Stu storyline. Put your phone down.
Why?
What's going on with this one?
This is called F. Eliza Navidad, which I assume is short for the F word.
Yes.
What have you got? What's your message?
It's just Rebecca. She's
really
just
smug.
sent us a tweet.
Okay, you just really smug.
No, it's the Corrie schedules for next week. Okay. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. You look like you had a massive, great secret.
No.
On Monday, Eliza's down in the dump. She hadn't heard from her dad. He's supposed to be there, and Stu and Yasmin say he's probably been having trouble.
Speaks more slowly. This is people need to have time to really soak this storyline in, Gemma. We need to know all the gory details. Carry on.
On Wednesday...
Not that slowly, speed up.
Stu tries to cheer Eliza up with a milkshake that she doesn't care. He's guilty. She gets a message from Dom later. Sorry, Miss Christmas, I'm staying in Germany. And Stu says, oh no, that's really sad.
This was where Alia says, oh, I'm sure he doesn't mean it. And I wish bit.
What?
Doesn't mean that he's really sorry that he missed Christmas.
Stu says, maybe you're better off without him. She tries calling him up, but she gets an answer phone, so she runs upstairs, upset. Comes down and cries.
I don't know why, because in Germany, like, don't they all do their Christmas stuff? Is it like the 6th of December?
I've never been.
I believe that is true.
I walked over a bridge and it was in Germany, and then I walked back over a different bridge and I was not in Germany anymore.
I think they have
I
fake
didn't
early
ask
Christmas
them
in
many
Germany.
questions.
They
when
still
I was
have
there.
their Weihnachten on the 25th, but the big day is the 6th. So I don't know what he was up to.
What do they do?
I'm gonna say it's something shoe related.
That everyone has to wear the shoe of the person sitting to their right.
It like your presents in your shoe.
You drink champagne out of the shoe.
It's been a long time since I learned about that, and I might be making it up. I might be pulling it out of an orifice. But anyway,
what's bum in German?
Arsch.
Right. Eliza's crying again. Blah blah blah. Eliza's back up in bed again. Blah blah blah. Yasmin is mad at Dom. And she says it's their job now to show Eliza how loved she is. And then Stu calls Dom up and says, come back. Sorry about that.
He's not able to get hold of him. Yeah.
On Friday, in the cafe, Yasmin is telling Roy that Dom's staying in Germany. This story...
Eliza
feels abandoned.
This story was old about 3 months ago.
why don't you and Evelyn come for a meal with me and Stu to speed dial? So Stu doesn't want to go, and Yasmin says, look, it's a bit of a story with characters people like. Why don't we go with them and see if they can liven up a bit?
Yeah, come on. We get to be in a scene with Evelyn.
Yeah, and he says, okay, fine.
It's really sad that they need to go out to other restaurants.
I know, it's their own restaurant.
Where are the Platts treating themselves to as a special occasion on Christmas Day? Oh, the bistro. Where's Yasmin? Not only she had her Christmas Day serving at speed dial, and now on Friday back at let's go for a massive treat, speed dial. There are other places in Manchester that you can go for your food, Yasmin. Just makes you come off as a skinflint.
So. Stu's trying to phone Dom again, no answer, but it finally rings him back. Pretty cross, not in the mood to discuss all this. Stu tells Yasmin everything when he puts the phone down, including about the money. Yasmin gets really mad and says, Eliza doesn't deserve a family like this. She's mad at everybody. Now they have to go for this stupid meal. Then they have a fight when they're having the meal, and Stu dumps water all over her.
Oh, They just have an accidental... What?
Have you got a mouse?
No.
Okay.
The cat's just run in looking guilty.
Come here.
There is no mouse. Yeah, they have a bit of a tussle over a carafe of water, don't they? And Yasmin gets drenched.
Yeah, so...
Oh, the hilarity. And Roy rushes off to get changed as well, which leaves Evelyn with Captain Birdseye, which was the best line of the episode.
Who's Captain Birdseye?
Who do you think?
What, Stu?
Yeah.
Yasmin comes back. Evelyn was stuck.
Yes.
Okay,
you
I get it.
The episode as well.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't like this bit. Funny, wasn't it? Water went everywhere. Cool.
Did you really love that story?
Maybe we shouldn't have 3 episodes a week.
Do you think? Do you think they shouldn't be filling it up with all this sort of stuff? I just don't know where it's going to end. Do you think Dom's coming back? Why are they
talking to him about it?
It feels like the end point of this is just going to be Eliza will be living with Yasmin and Stu again, and
Eliza,
it's going to be back to this.
Go and live in Germany.
She's not though, is she?
Live in Germany. What happened to your arm?
No
one cares about that anymore, do they?
No.
That was the most exciting thing that's ever happened to her.
Getting nearly run over by Mason.
Where's he gone?
He's just been tormenting Liam by text all throughout the Christmas
Merry
holidays.
Christmas, rat boy.
Yeah, what's he been doing for Liam? Okay, so...
I know what Mason's been doing. He's been watching Mog on a loop.
Oh, yes, if you've been watching that. If you want a song to irritate your nearest
and
dearest with.
Best thing, Mog was the best thing on Christmas.
Tracy has been talking...
This is the Tracy story.
This is the Tracy story. This is the beginning of a storyline that seems like, here's a teaser of a 2024 hot and steamy affair between Tracy and Tommy Orpington. You heard it here first. Because Tracy and Steve are talking about this relationship gap year idea, aren't they? This comes up during Christmas dinner. And Steve thinks it's a ridiculous idea, but Tracy is clearly unhappy in her marriage. How long have they been together now? 3 years, maybe?
Gosh, so basically...
It doesn't...
A vintage.
It doesn't seem like too long for Tracy to be bored, considering how she was declaring to Steve that you're my only one. I've loved you ever since I was a teenager. Now she's getting bored with him. I don't quite believe it, and I think the problem with this is we've not seen hide nor hair of them as a couple in the past couple of years, have we? We saw them about a little bit during the Amy rape story, but I'd like to have seen a little bit more of this marriage breakdown than rather be told that Tracy is up for the idea of spending a year apart from him. But anyway, they have a falling out, and she winds up going to the flower shop. Who should walk in but Tommy Orpington? We thought we'd seen the last of him. No, he's back, and he's now a painter and decorator. And he
with bad organisation skills.
Yes, he needs a present for his mum. This is going to be Christmas Day evening that this has happened, and I want to know did he forget his mum was coming over? His mum made a surprise visit to the Orpington house. I don't know, but Tracy's able to sell him a wilting poinsettia for 50 quid or something. And when he hands over his card, she's like, "Oh, Tommy Orpington, don't I know that name?" And I don't think he says who he is, does he? He doesn't say, yes, it's me, the famous Weatherfield footballer, but we know. And yes, this looks like that maybe Tommy's going to be scoring in a different way in the future. Thoughts, Gemma?
I'm being very candid in this episode, aren't I?
Well, no, you can be...
Nobody wanted Tommy Orpington to come back as a full-time character. This is the thing.
Nobody wanted Tom...
I don't want anyone to feel bad listening to this who does the show. I don't know who listens to it. I feel so bad when I say these things. It's not nice to hear if you're the actors or any, you know, but my goodness me, we don't want Tommy Orpington as a full-time character shacking Tracy in the back of the Preston's Petals, do we?
I don't think he's going to be back as a full-time character, but it feels like there's some kind of Steve Tracy marital breakdown story coming up, and he's going to be playing somewhat of a part in there. But yeah, why? No. In some ways it makes sense. Like, you know, Steve is Tommy Orpington's biggest fanboy, isn't he? Him and Tim, like, loved a bit of Tommy O when he was playing for Weatherfield County. So to have your hero bedding your wife, I guess that there's story potential in there. I don't want to see it. I don't need Tommy Orpington back. He was dull then. Maybe they're going to give him a personality now, because he certainly never had one up to this point. I
preferred him when he was just a funny little cameo.
He's just like a name that gets mentioned every now and then. This is why I didn't get it. Like, Tracy didn't know who this guy was. Surely Steve never shuts up about him. If I was to mention, you know who I'm nerdily obsessed with. So I don't really buy that she didn't know straight away. And it makes me wonder how long it's going to be before she realises who he is. Will she have got him to drop his drawers? Or is he going to take his trousers down and he's got like football underpants down there? And she's like, no, I know where I know you from.
Did she not tell her who he was then?
He says I'm Tommy Orpington, but not I'm Tommy Orpington, the Weatherfield second famous footballer after James Bailey, young superstar extraordinaire.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's seemingly where that's going. But who really was asking for Tommy Orpington back? Really, that's kind of scraping it, isn't it?
No, not really. You know, but just
it's bringing in another new character. We don't need more new characters.
We need to get rid of all the ones that are dead weight.
And you know, the worst bit about this is Dr. Gaddas still hasn't got a storyline, and this would be the perfect opportunity because maybe Gaddas and Tracy, because we know that Tracy has had many a lesbian affair behind bars apparently.
Oh well, maybe if they start barring up the windows are barred up, aren't they, at the medical centre?
They are.
She gets too close to those, she might get amorous.
Right, Gemma, let's give it all you've got. Final story: Rover's return, back for New Year's Eve. What's Jenny and Daisy been up to in tonight's episode?
So we only had to Fridays.
We did.
Jenny does this very, very long classic Corrie fake out where she, even on the phone to the person who's like telling her, you got the pub. She's like, oh, thanks for letting me know. The woman's like, what the hell? I think she didn't understand what I said. Anyway, the pub's theirs.
I was really confused at the beginning of this episode because I'd heard the spoiler mill saying that Jenny's going to be opening the pub again. And when she was talking to Daisy at the beginning of the episode saying, oh, well, yeah, haven't got it. I was like, really? Is this a fake out? That was a masterful fake out. That was the longest anyone has ever been faked out on Coronation Street history.
Because I was watching this going, but how are they going to get it in time for New Year's Eve then?
Yeah, she dragged it on for so long that I actually believed it. But anyway, they've got the pub.
Daisy started to come up with all these ideas, and we're starting to see the genesis of this clash, where I'm sure that's going to come from two very strong-minded women, both thinking they're in charge.
Yes, with different ideas about what makes a good pub.
She wants a pool table, she wants a pizza oven, she wants a picture wall for Instagram.
Oh, this is where we can talk about our Christmas present. We got a pizza oven from your mum and dad, didn't we, this Christmas? Yeah. That's exciting. We didn't even talk about our Christmas presents at all. Gemma got me a lovely charging stand for
your travels, but it's supposed to be for when you go travelling, but you've just put it next to your bed now.
I've got to try it out, and at other times of the year, I've got lots of chocolate. But yeah, pizza oven, brilliant.
Yes,
we'll let Jenny know how it is and whether it's worth it.
Yeah, should do. Jenny just wants to keep everything the same. Daniel comes in, he wants to meet up with Daisy later. So she wonders what it could be. Jenny thinks he might be wanting to get back with her. But no, it seems to be that he wants to give her a picture that Bertie drew. Of the three of them, Bertie's been missing her, she's been missing him, but they're not getting back together. And then Daisy says, by the way, we're getting the Rovers back. What the hell does Daniel could have given her the picture when he went to say he wanted to meet her up with her.
Well, he was in the cafe, wasn't he, when he saw her? He probably doesn't carry this picture around with him.
Take a picture of it.
I know that coincidental bumpings into is a part and parcel of everyday life if you're a resident of Coronation Street. But...
Maybe he wanted to give it to her so she could take it home. Yeah. In which case you're like, no, all right, you can keep this.
I don't even think that was Daniel in the picture. I think that was Rita, that auburn glitter.
Who was that supposed to be?
That was supposed to be Daniel.
But Daniel doesn't have orange hair.
Well, you go and critique Bertie's work to his face.
Artistic licence. So yeah, she says the money's from a bank loan. Jenny comes back, she's bought an air fryer. And Daisy says she wants to open the pub for New Year's Eve. And the Waterford said it's okay. And Jenny's, yay!
What was that sigh for?
Well, yeah, okay. Magic fairies waved a wand, so don't ask questions. Jenny's
Things
thrilled.
happened very quickly. Do you remember when Jenny and Johnny took over the pub and it was theirs within a matter of days?
Yeah.
This is the quickest transfer of property I think Coronation Street has ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was a bit confused about what Waterford's have got to say. I didn't think that they were involved with it anymore. I've lost complete track of this. So Waterford's took over the pub and then they were going to open it, but then they didn't want to.
Wouldn't happen in real life, but we won't.
I thought they bought it off of Water. I don't know.
We don't care to comment.
No, all that matters is that come Sunday night, the Rovers is going to be buzzing again, just in time for Christmas Eve, just in time for the camera to pan up above it and have fake CGI fireworks. I wonder what's going to...
What's that? It's the pizza ovens exploding.
I wonder, is there going to be... Because I think for the last couple of years, there's been drama on the stroke of midnight, where last year... I
wonder what it could be this year.
What do you think?
Go on.
No,
last year, what?
Last year, do you remember it was Teddy's eyes opening up in hospital? Because he'd been smashed by that van, hadn't he? Do you remember he opens his eyes and the little beep 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 machine is reflected in it? It was terrible. And then was it the year before at Christmas? I think that was Sally having a wee in Victoria Gardens. But at the same time, Faye was confessing to someone or other that she was the one that clonked Adam on the head, maybe. But yeah, maybe there is something else. Gemma's just typed a spoiler in front of me.
You know what that is.
I do know that spoiler is happening, but I don't know whether that's a stroke of midnight spoiler.
Who knows?
We'll have to see, won't we? Anyway, we're not going to be able to watch it on Sunday night because we're going out to a party.
Only cool people.
Social butterflies.
Only losers watch it on New Year's Eve.
Don't say that.
Out my back.
I wish I was. I'd rather be watching Coronation Street.
That's exactly why you're a loser.
Okay, that's it. That's everything that happened in Coronation Street this week. What's a lot happened this week? What's a lot to talk about?
Wow,
and there's even more coming up in the news later because that has also generated a bit of discussion this week. But what you rating it, Gemma?
Oh my goodness!
Right, so we got Carla, we got Peter, we got Bobby.
I just want to say that the usual kind of retort to the Christmas ratings thing is, or who had the best episode, is that Corrie's well, we're not in competition about who's got the best Christmas episode. Coronation Street Christmas episodes aren't supposed to be competing with EastEnders. It's just we're not doing all that big soapy drama stuff. You can't stand on the starting line and then say you're not racing. You are. It doesn't matter whether you think you are or whether you want to. You're in competition. You are going to be judged on your ratings. You can't just say, I'm not doing it.
It's really hard because EastEnders has been bigging up this Christmas episode all year and it would almost be impossible to compete. But
they didn't even try, is what I'm trying to say. And, you have Super Soap Week and Britain's Got Talent Week and stuff, which seems to be where Corrie wants to push the ratings. But nobody's saying, what's EastEnders doing for Super Soap Week? Because EastEnders doesn't do Super Soap Week. That's an ITV thing only. So the only time people are looking at the ratings and going, who got the best ratings is Christmas Day.
But we'll talk about the ratings.
Perhaps they needed to put a bit more thought into how is this being perceived, because perception is part of the struggle that soaps are going to be battling to try to make people watch them. Nobody wants to watch something that everyone's decided is, past it. And if they keep performing poorly during pivotal moments, that will be the impression, and that will be a contributing factor.
Yeah, for sure. What are we scoring at? We got a character of the week's a tricky one this week.
It's been quite a ensemble. It's got to be Carla or Peter, I guess, maybe.
It has been a proper ensemble cast.
I'm going to say Peter.
I mean, I might.
He lost his damn mind.
Do you want to justify your decision?
Because he's not in it anymore.
Any other things than that?
He did a great performance.
Great. I'm going to give it to Dee Dee this week.
Oh, nice.
Dee Dee Bailey, because she stood by her dad mostly when everybody else was trying to sling him out of the house, and she didn't report him to the police after she found out all the other mischief that he's been getting up to as well. And genuinely, I just really thought that she was lovely this week. And
yeah, she was, yeah. She's always been the nicest Bailey.
Yeah, she has. So I'm giving it to her. Scores,
Jesus would be proud of her.
Yes. Have you got a score? Have you got an idea in mind about what
are you going to give it?
I've got. I think I might give it 2.5 2.5 pissoirs out of 5.
I'm sorry, but I'm giving it 2.5 as well. 2.5 mouldy pizzas down the back of Eileen's sofa.
It wasn't a great week.
It's because it wasn't just a bad week.
It was a week that should have been good. It was a week
that was supposed to have. Yeah, and they had a big episode. They had a character leaving. They had a new character arriving. It's Christmas. Everyone's watching TV. Everyone's talking about Christmas telly, even if they're not watching it. And this was an opportunity that was not used at all.
The thing, it's not true to say anymore that people are watching TV. Even up until 5 years ago, it would be true to say that. But
I hate it when people say that.
The highest rated thing on Christmas Day this year was the King's Speech, and that got 7.5 million. Yeah, so gone are the days when it's in the teens. The top the viewing figures. People don't watch as much TV, or there's so much variation.
I hate it when people say that. It's not people don't watch TV. People consume more content, visual content, than they ever have before. They don't watch television when it's scheduled. That's a completely different thing.
Well, we have to, with the ratings and everything, we'll have to see what happens when the consolidated figures come in. But I don't think there's the same competition. I think that people are doing other things a little bit more now. But anyway, we're
not basket weaving, are we? We're all watching trash. It doesn't matter whether it's on, somebody told you've got to watch this trash at 9:00, or you go on Netflix and watch it when you want. It's all crap at the end of the day.
Very true.
It's all the same thing.
Well, maybe next week's Coronation Street will be better. Maybe we'll enjoy it more. Here's to positivity for 2024.
2024, my New Year's resolution is every week of Coronation Street we'll get 5 out of 5.
Yes, but you got to work for it, Corrie.